We're going to talk about outrageous things that have happened or things that have never happened. Let's talk about the fact that President Trump incited an erection. And maybe that too.
Yeah, you could talk about that too, I guess.
At White House Senior Living, our residents feel right at home. Our vibrant facility offers delightful activities and outings, round-the-clock professional care, and exquisite house-made meals.
Well, I've been eating everything that's put in front of me. I've been eating all Italian foods, basically.
And ice cream.
And ice cream, chocolate chip ice cream.
White House Senior Living, where residents feel like presidents. At White House.
What's up there? We're going to go watch the live stream of the debate. And also I have Temple and Vivek up as well. I also have the DeSantis and Nikki Haley debate that everyone cares about. So let's not get it twisted. I will have it all up there. What's up? What's up, Joshua? What's up, Valerie? How are we feeling? How we doing in this resident? This clip still gets me because she knows what she's on.
We're going to talk about outrageous things that have happened or things that have never happened. Let's talk about the fact that President Trump incited an erection. And maybe that too.
See, you can't argue that, okay? Right-wingers, Donald Trump definitely incited an erection. All right, let's check on... Okay, CNN, you're doing great.
You think is it Trump or is it what he represents?
How are we feeling? Get in the chat. Let me know your thoughts on this. Let me know your thoughts on this town hall. Do you even care? Are you excited to watch it? Is it going to be funny? Is it going to be full of good stuff?
The wall just got 10 feet taller. Stop it.
I do have my my Trump soundboard queued up.
The anti-woke stuff, the transgender stuff.
She did a Schumer.
We do have disagreements on the partisan basis, but that's all fine. It's mostly a deflection, actually. It's almost a convenient fact that Nikki Haley occasionally gets to say things that pay homage to the anti-woke movement. I don't think she has actual beliefs, but at least it's part of the cover. The real third rails are foreign policy. Keep the interventionist, neoliberal, neoconservative worldview of the U.S. as the hegemon that actually gets people to cut in on the rake here at home, the likes of the John Boltons and the Nikki Haleys. Right. And then third rail is the national security state at home. But I think in Donald Trump's case, I think that they've convinced themselves.
How are we feeling?
That with this man in particular, he is so dangerous to the future. He's demonstrated himself to be, their words, their view, not mine, that they have to and have a moral duty to this country. And when you believe you have a moral duty to do something, then you're bound by your more subordinate moral constraints. Because there's the everyday moral norms you operate against. But if you think it's about the future existence of humanity or a nation, then those ordinary constraints no longer apply. And I think that's the mode this system is now in. The ordinary constraints are, okay, you let people on a ballot. Not anymore. You don't prosecute people for made-up crimes, especially in the middle of a presidential election. Not anymore. And if they've ratcheted up each of those times and none of those things work, I just think eventually they're just going to stop at nothing, whatever it takes to take Trump out, after they've narrowed it down to a two-horse race between Trump and Haley, which in turn is why I'm in this till the very end. And I think that we have a responsibility to this country to make sure that plot doesn't
I cannot believe the debate and Trump town hall are both going live at the same time. That is so ridiculous. You guys are all for Trump.
Somehow think that actually isn't going to be successfully executed.
Drop a like if you don't mind a lot, if you're watching it on live on YouTube.
Moment where someone mutters Ron's probably getting out after Iowa. Let's imagine this scenario that Ron actually decides for whatever happens in Iowa, his showing wasn't good enough and it's time to end this race. The worst
freaking missed you guys
imaginable would be you then leaving the race as well, because it would by default give us either Trump or Haley.
And I'm definitely not.
Just a reminder, the debate doesn't start for another 25 minutes. So if you're wondering, if you're here and you're wondering where is this Trump town hall, it's not started yet. So get off me if you're like, put the debate on.
See this out. Intuitively, it feels like the next step in the game among
Don't be rude.
Is Ron would make a good vice president for Nikki, right? Christie out of the way is one footnote today. All right, eliminate part of the consolidation in New Hampshire. Christie's not running for president of the United States ever. He was arguably running for like vice president of New Hampshire. But anyway, once he exited, well, actually combine that in to prop up Nikki a little bit more. The next thing is you take the Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis is not in New Hampshire so much, but in certain other states, Florida or otherwise, turn that over.
Maybe you have to change your hair, but you will never be able to change the fact that you have no soul ginger. This is my real hair. I dyed it over the weekend, Wes.
I believe that that's what he thinks.
I know it's hard to believe, but
that's that what he thinks actually
yeah.
matters.
Yeah, Wes.
Don't be rude.
Put him up to run for president in the first place. I don't think the man on his own volition. I think there are other people who put him up to run for president. Shut up! To do it. The same people are going to put him up to be Nikki's vice president. So you play this forward.
Cheers to a night.
Final step.
We're gonna have fun
Trump
tonight,
out of
people.
Contention, trot the corporate puppets into office. That's
we're
where
gonna
this
have fun.
plot ends, and I feel like
we're gonna have a good time.
Of clarity that makes it torturous. It's like a kind of form of torture to watch this playing out in real time without standing up and actually doing something about it.
Let me real quick, just to get it in there. Scenario: Donald Trump wins the primary. He comes right on out and says, "Vivek Ramaswamy, you are my vice president." What do you say?
Donald Trump wins the. You're saying Donald Trump wins the primary and then that. So I think we just have to have an honest conversation. I mean, if that's the scenario we're in, that's not what I'm playing for. But if that's what we're in, I have an inconvenient attribute, which is that I have opinions. I have strong opinions about things. I'm not somebody who really, rolls over or whatever. But what I've said is Donald Trump has my full support if he's the nominee, and I expect his full support if I'm the nominee. But I don't think we get to that place. That's the whole premise of I mean, when you think it's Gavin Newsom or Joe Biden.
It's the truth. Sometimes the truth hurts. Sorry, buddy.
I don't think they want Biden or Newsom.
China.
Nikki is a far more reliable pawn for the system with respect to the two things they care about most.
I'm never playing that one
keeping
again.
The foreign war machine humming, far more reliable on places from the Middle East to Ukraine. She's far more hawkish than actually anybody in the Democratic side. And with respect to the national security state, I don't think Joe Biden could have come up with the idea if he tried to tie every social media account and internet account with the government-issued ID. So I don't think it goes there, Tim. I think where it goes is they want this late in the primary, and then they get the air cover because the Democratic Party's brand isn't doing.
Depends on Tim Poll starts talking about Civil War.
Fundamentally nonpartisan.
100%.
So
you want me to start talking about it? I'll start talking about it.
We weren't even doing the Democrat game where most of the Republican base watching cable news thinks it's about beating Biden. They're missing the plot. That's what's going on.
That's actually a really great point. We were talking just the other day, there was a story, a J.P. Morgan top strategist, I'm sure you heard, said his prediction is that Joe Biden drops out just after Super Tuesday due to a health issue.
Mark Barnett saying he had promise here.
I view that as a very, very good strategy for Democrats.
When the
I've been saying for some time that I believe Joe Biden will drop out. His health is just not there. His polling is not there. It is political suicide. However, many people pointed out in our chats and in our audience that it's too late to have a primary. There's nothing they can do. Actually, that sounds like the best play. Joe Biden says, I'm running. No primary to be had. Don't worry about
Let's
it.
go ahead to the
says,
FBI
no,
war list.
This gives the DNC the ability to just
I'm on the war list
who
right
is going
now.
to be their nominee. However, I think you actually make a much better point. Why even worry about going into a political conflict with Donald Trump and the populist Republican base?
Yes.
When you can win from within with
Exactly.
Nikki Haley.
And that's exactly what's going on. And also they have this ailing Kamala Harris problem because if anything other than Kamala Harris is the nominee, then they got the racist, misogynist thing going on, which undermines their own self-stated narrative. And I think just the brand of the Democratic Party for the Larry Finks or the establishment puppet masters of the world, it's a little tarnished right now. Let them heal themselves. We're going to do this within the Republican Party with a much more reliable vessel, with a little bit more of a polished exterior, a little bit more committed on the pro-war agenda, and a lot more committed on the censorship and national security agenda here at home. I think that actually gets their job done much better without some of the inconveniences that come with Biden. So like you, I was initially
I have them all lined up, so just so you're aware.
Who are they going to trot out instead of
But
Biden?
we can talk. Let's talk it out. I'm at war with this cold front that's hitting in my area. Dudes, I got a cold front too. What the frick, dude? I am not ready for this kind of cold weather. I am over it already, even though it just started.
The wall just got 10 feet taller.
Due to the cold weather, I will be building an absolute wall.
Because you'd be in jail.
You'd be in jail. Building that wall. I'll tell HOA on you in a second. Playing around with me.
Thank you very much.
Oh, this is going to get bad.
I am the chosen one.
Materials. It's more than just a boarding pass saying given. We've had our own employees at Timcast witness on these flights, doing these events, planes full of illegal immigrants carrying these bags with instructions. They don't speak English. Someone is doing this.
Wait, where are you at, Wes?
Not just we know
where do you live? Tell everyone where you live. Put your zip code on the bottom.
Children, illegal immigrant children, being smuggled on flights in the late hours or the early hours of the morning into places like Tennessee and Westchester, and we from those stories and from the expansion of them, we know that exists. We also know that yes, Greg Abbott and other governors have been sending illegal immigrants deeper into the country in various places. The question is, why is this happening? Why isn't our border being secured? Why is it that when James O'Keefe in this video it's crazy. They follow a bus carrying these illegal immigrants. The bus tries to hit them. The bus tries fleeing, swerving through the road, going on and off exits, trying to lose them because journalists are following them, and then actually
so I can live out my Yellowstone
does not release
dreams.
Passengers and then leaves again. Something about what they're doing has them scared someone will find out they're doing it. But I'll give you one quick story that happened to me personally. Outside of this, Ashley St. Clair showed me the materials. It's a boarding pass that says no name given. Do you want to board a major airliner with people? Our security, our TSA has no idea who these people are, where they come from. I was in Chicago over the holiday.
100 miles east of Utah border.
It's really fun, isn't it? And
hey, look, there's a bunch of Wyomans.
Said the other day, a 737 came in, and we were told by our bosses that it was the Blackhawks. How fun is that? Oh, you're gonna get to go service a plane, pull out the luggage for a famous hockey team. He said when they pulled up to the plane and opened it up, there were 3 garbage bags in the forward cargo hold. That's it. No luggage, nothing. They then found out that the entire plane, 140 passengers, were illegal immigrants, and he said it was Swift Air. I don't know. That's what he told me. I asked him, did they lie to you, claiming it was the Blackhawks, because you would not have served that plane had you known you'd be facilitating illegal immigration? And he went, bingo. Exactly.
You are fake news.
So my question now is, with all of this news breaking, and this is a massive story, I'm interested in your view on what's going on.
I love Utah.
I want to know how you plan to handle it, what you would do. And I also want to know your position.
I think this is a good question, though.
How do we handle the fact that there are federal law enforcement officers actually facilitating this?
Yeah, well, I think it's, again, one of these, when it comes to the media, third rail issues, when you name what's going on, so forget the labels, great replacement theory, whatever, just forget the labels. What's going on is, what's the most parsimonious explanation is, there is a facilitation of mass illegal migration into the United States to secure lasting electoral majorities for the Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. And the reason, that's not a conspiracy theory is it is a pre-stated strategy of Democrats dating back to about 10 years ago. And it's not a surprise when you got Mayorkas sitting by Joe Biden's side about 10 years ago, the guy who's actually running the Department of Homeland Security right now, who is in turn refusing to enforce the Remain in Mexico policies. Yes, that's exactly what's going on and hiding in plain sight. And the math makes sense. It works. So now you have AOC coming in for cover in recent days, this was yesterday or the day before, saying that actually the right solution isn't building the wall, but to document the undocumented, which is the next step to them participating in those elections. And so it's, if somebody tells you this is what I'd like to do, then they take actions consistent with achieving what they'd like to do, and then consummate it by actually doing that very thing in changing the composition of the electorate and translating into who actually ends up voting in elections. You tend to believe that that's the most parsimonious explanation, not something else that we're otherwise struggling to figure out how to solve. Well, once we figured out how to solve that, we realize it's not a technical problem. I think, and sometimes it's what bothers me in a lot of the border discussions is people will get into some sort of, I've done this too, I'll get into technical details. Do we need aquatic barriers in the Rio Grande? What do we think about the airlines? How should they be conforming the standards to the other people at the TSA, the thousands standing around, as I call them, at the airport, or what are they doing? None of that matters. Actually eliminate the intention. Get the intentions in the right place. Say our intention is for people who enter this country illegally to not be in this country. Technically, it becomes actually a very easy challenge to solve. Militarize the southern border. We're militarizing other people's borders. How about militarizing our own?
Oh, it's a song? I have to check out that song.
As we are doing and should not be doing for others. Use the aquatic barriers in the Rio Grande. Stop giving money to Central America. Most of the people coming through Mexico, 80% of them didn't start in Mexico. Require each of those countries to build a border barricade all the way from Venezuela to the southern border of Texas. And birthright citizenship for kids of illegals.
Stick with me.
The 14th Amendment does not apply to the kids of illegals. I can go to the legal argument on this. They duped Donald Trump on this one. They said you need a constitutional amendment. Actually, you don't. Stop federal funding for sanctuary cities. We're paying for this. Our federal taxpayer money is actually paying for this facilitation of the domestic transfer to sanctuary cities. And then anybody in this country should be returned to their country of origin if you're here illegally. It's that simple. Now, they say there's only 6,000 ICE agents, Immigrations and Customs Enforcement agents. Well, again, if you read the law...
Candace Owens is such a weird addition to this episode.
Like this. That allows ICE agents to serve their warrants via local law enforcement. You just need, again, somebody running, ideally the entire executive branch, a president who tells the Department of Homeland Security and ICE to use that authority to work with local law enforcement. Now you got 1 million people, not just 6,000, to get the job done. So I gave you all of this as though the technical challenge was really the challenge. It's not. It's a challenge of intention. Right now there's been a long-standing intention to fundamentally change the composition of the U.S. electorate. If you call that a great replacement theory, CNN will have a conniption. If you say that, you know what, this is part of an electoral strategy, they would ask you what's so wrong with that. But either way, we got to at least air what it actually is to be able to have a debate whether this is desirable policy or not.
But if you say if you like it and if you support people coming in and replacing the local population, you of course get promoted by the corporate media.
Yeah.
There's crazy stats out there talking about how there's more illegals brought into the United States than actual babies born inside of this country. This is to me the weaponization of human trafficking. The
Start having babies.
The third world into the United States that's going to create a super elitist Uber class and
start having babies.
Poverty everyone else class. This is far beyond just even a great replacement. This is essentially the destruction of this country from within. How can we roll this back? How can we go back from hundreds of thousands of people coming into this country in such a weaponized way?
Millions of people.
Yep.
Well, you can draft them into the military. I mean,
send them to Ukraine?
Because the idea of mass deportations is like a storybook Nazi Germany visage. Like I can see the images of like newly deputized ICE agents, like a 19-year-old cop going and like grabbing some woman and pulling her out of her house and her screaming as the baby's lying on the ground. Like the world will not tolerate it. Even our own country, as much as I'm not saying that deportations are off the table, but that's the imagery that would be swung.
What is happening?
Like so what do you do? Send them into the army? Go let them earn their citizenship by fighting in the Ukraine? I don't know what the plan is.
The only thing I would say about that is, one is I do favor in substance doing this as humanely and respectfully
I don't know what the plan is. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Largely because for many of these people, it's not necessarily their fault, right? If you're sitting in Honduras or wherever, and you got a U.S. president, an entire apparatus that's giving you a wink and a nod to come on over, who knows? Maybe if many of us were in their shoes, we would have done the same thing, especially we're parents of children who want better lives for our children. So I just think it's the right thing to do for this country because we're a nation founded on the rule of law.
Destiny debate.
That's not something that's necessarily hostile
dude, that
most
debate.
of those millions are not.
Did you watch that debate, Valerie? Oh, that debate was so bad. I wanted it to be good, but I knew it wasn't going to be good. If you want to watch a decent J6 debate, that Rekieta Law versus Destiny, that was decent.
Two sons in the White House tell them they have to follow the
Other than
rules.
that, I would not recommend any of them.
Government that actively isn't following its own rules. And so I think as respectfully and humanely as possible, we have to return them to their country of origin. But Ian, there's a philosophical point here too, which is I think once we fall into the trap as leaders of trying to make decisions based on how we fear they will be portrayed, then we're done making the right decisions, and we're just down the road of actually dancing to what we think will be
Dude,
portrayed.
I watched all 6 hours,
and it becomes circular. Whereas I think the job of a good leader is to do what is right, and when the public does not agree with you, to persuade them of the fact that that was still the right thing to do.
I do think the public are now very aware of the problem that's happening right now. I'm totally comfortable with mass deportations. I could definitely stomach watching mass deportations happen. I mean, we've been forced to stomach watching it happen the other way. I don't know if I'm broken on the inside, but I mean, reading these stories about people that can't afford groceries and yet are having to watch buses and schools emailing them saying, hey, don't come in today because we've decided to give the school that you've been funding for years with your tax dollars to illegal immigrants so they could sleep. I feel bad for those people. You know what I mean? I feel bad for the American people that are looking at are suffering at the gas pump, suffering at the grocery stores, and constantly being told by the left that you need to feel bad for someone else somewhere more than you feel bad for yourself. I think it's time for Americans to get a little bit more selfish in that regard and stop. And I think they will do. I think we're suffering enough now that people are going to.
Yeah, you got to militarize the border. There should be. I mean, I don't hear this enough.
What's up, Willie?
But there should be
open borders are fine.
Pointing outward away from our borders.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But then what what you need is a leader at the top
Giving
that's
free
not
healthcare.
waving people in, because if they're waving people in, no machine gun nest. We're not going to do that. But if I think that unless you tell them to stop coming, and I mean you do it with more than just your words, that it's not good. The problem isn't going to.
Well, I appreciate what I would describe as Ian's big ask. And now we're going to walk way back from machine gun nests on the border to like maybe a fence.
It's not even that. You statist authoritarian. It's more not incentivizing this from happening. I mean, giving our resource, giving our tax dollars is essentially telling a lot of people, because I covered this situation on the ground in Mexico. I covered it in Europe, in southern Italy as well. I covered it all over the world, and all these people were told, hey, come on in. We're going to take care of you. We're going to give you all the opportunities. We're going to give you everything you want. But they don't tell them how essentially a lot of multinational corporations use them as slave labor. They don't tell them about a larger Koch brother plan that we used to have members of the Senate talk about, specifically from Vermont, that no longer bring it up as a key issue, as of course it is affecting everyone. It is affecting the blue collar, middle class Americans, and even more importantly, the poorest people in this country that are now left out literally in the cold.
It is a lie when they say that these are jobs Americans don't want. And we saw this when Donald Trump, I think the number was around 600 or so individuals deported from meat processing plants in the South. And then once several hundred people are deported, these companies say, we need to hire, so they have a job fair. Who shows up? Americans. And there were interviews, and you can Google and watch these videos. One man is asked, why are you coming to work at this plant? You know, these are jobs that Americans don't want. And he goes, are you kidding? Pays $14 an hour. That's
Luke is not really an anarchist.
It's a good
I don't think
job
so
for
either.
me. They want you to believe nobody wants these jobs as they give them
Don't
away
worry, the debate
and
will
drop
be
the
here.
prices. And I got to say, it is these large multinational corporations
So 8 minutes
that know
away.
They can pay people under the table dirt wages, and this is how they get cheap labor.
I just want to say one thing to Ian's point from earlier. I think it's important to understand what's going on, like on the ground in the southern border. Have any of you guys been to the southern border?
I should. I have.
Oh yeah, because actually you have. So I think that probably affects your view, Candace. It definitely affects mine, having been there. It's not like you have this situation where illegal migrants or whatever are trying to cross the Rio Grande, sneak across, get a sprint, and then do you shoot them or not? It's not one of those situations. It's organized by our own government. It's facilities. It's actually what was striking about it is there's a lot of things in life that are pretty disorganized. Like starting a startup company is pretty disorganized. You guys maybe have a similar enterprise here that you started from a ground floor. I've seen a lot of things that are good in life are disorganized. This is not disorganized. This is striking because of how markedly organized it actually is. There's a process. They give you forms. Here's the box you check. You don't have to know English. They'll just tell you which box to check. Seeking asylum. Do you have to show proof of political persecution to get asylum? Not at all. It's just a procedure you go through. You know exactly go from point A to point B to point C. And so part of militarizing the southern border is the signal that we send, because that's the signal we're sending right now. Not only coming in, but then you show up to Sanctuary City. You get baby formula, you get sneakers, $7,000 per migrant per month, converting South Shore High School on the south side of Chicago into an encampment for migrants. So I think part of what we're doing is offering a clear statement. We end federal funding for sanctuary cities. You know in advance that if your child is born in the United States, they're not going to actually enjoy citizenship. Oh, there's a wall and a fence and people wearing camo because they serve in the U.S. military facing outward. I'll never have the military carrying out domestic law enforcement functions, but facing outward against what currently is an organized invasion into our country. That's, I think, what's going on. And so this idea of, guys with guns and do you shoot or not, it's just not even close to what's happening right now. And I think part of this goes back to, it's not the technicals that matter. It's a statement of intention. If we believe, and we have a national consensus, and I believe we basically do, but the Democratic Party needs to align and admit it openly, that we do not want large numbers of illegal people entering this country, we absolutely and quickly can put an end to it as a technical matter. The problem is there's a statement of intention that not only is that not what much of the Democratic Party believes, that same wing actually believes that it is inherently
6 minutes. 6 minutes. Get ready.
Adopt policies that facilitating it while pretending like you actually wish
6
for the
minutes.
opposite. That's really what this is about. So all the technical solutions become really details, footnotes, compared to really a debate about the intentions. Do you want a mass change in the composition of the U.S. electorate?
6 minutes.
And the composition of the ethnic and linguistic background of people in the United States, or don't you? That's what's on the table.
When it comes to like using the law, you said earlier you want to stick with the law, like focus on the law. And really, as the president, that is like your job as the commander of the military. Number one.
100%.
Like, law and order, I get, but sometimes law and order can be used for evil.
I agree.
And we need to be diligent or at least judicious about how we implement. I don't know if you want to call it prosecutorial or commandorial, expression. You get to pick and choose when you enforce the law. So like deportations, I'm still, my jury's out on this one right now.
It was for me for a while too, but I think that's the only.
I mean, I feel nothing.
Yeah. Look. Let me stress.
I'm good with people to turn on their neighbors and be like, I think he's illegal, and that kind of.
Yeah, we're not talking about that. But look, humans can do bad things. I actually have a tremendous amount of respect for people who are willing to traverse miles through desert, dozens or hundreds or thousands of miles, because the dream of America is so incredible. But it's got to be a legal process.
But it's not even the dream that's being sold to them anymore. It's just you're being offered free stuff now. You know what I mean? This is not the American dream, and I'm suffering so much in this country, and I'm willing to traverse through the desert for an opportunity. Like you said, it is now systematic. You are going to have a better life as soon as you get here. It's all set up for you. You know, I met a journalist that found the dumping point where they're being told to dump all of their IDs. They're coming in on flights from other countries, dumping their IDs because they're being told to. She had 3 bags filled with their IDs. Yep. And then they were handed these pamphlets from the UN, by the way, which was beyond bonkers. She showed me this pamphlet that was coming from the UN. And they're being told to do this to come into this country because they know that there are politicians that are setting up an entire system for them where their lives will be better. So this is not the same mentality. People that are coming at the border right now, we have to let go of this idea that they're just these suffering people who are willing to do anything for an opportunity. They're just being offered handouts at the expense of the American people.
And it's like an assembly line to bring them in.
Yeah, free healthcare and free
everything.
gender changes.
Yeah, it's lottery tickets.
I'll use this as a segue. One of the things I've heard quite a bit, many people back in my hometown, Chicago, have said, I can't afford to pay the rent. My groceries are too expensive. We just went to Hy-Vee, grocery store out here. It was great. But it was expensive. I mean, I got 3 things of salami. I always love buying salami and cheese dip. A couple things of heavy whipping cream with our coffee. 4 grocery bags. It was $300. To be fair, we got some vitamins and some protein powder. I know there's a little bit more expensive, but I was surprised to see this little bit was so much. And I hear people say, in Chicago particularly, when I went and visited home, they're paying these people rent.
I'll be like
my
polls.
Hotels. They're giving them our schools. They're getting a free pass from our tax dollars, and I can't afford to pay rent.
Right.
I can't afford to survive. So part of the immigration issue that many people are feeling is the economic hit they're taking. We're paying taxes that are supporting all of these flights where they're bringing in hundreds or thousands. These buses, they're being paid for by the American taxpayer, while the American taxpayer suffers and can't afford to pay rent.
Yeah, and I think actually that's what makes this a nonpartisan issue. This should be a slam dunk issue for us. So it was your hometown, Chicago. I didn't realize that. I visited the south side of Chicago earlier in this campaign, which
shout out to South Side.
Very traditional campaign. South Shore.
South Shore.
Yeah, and a couple of different areas too. But we went to South Shore High Schools where we finished the day. And really? That's where you grew up?
Midway Airport. 2 blocks away.
All right. Well, good deep dish pizza and all that.
The ghetto.
It's called soup.
There's something select.
Well, that's the tourist stuff.
Art of pizza. Check it out.
Yeah, but that's what I am when I go. I mean, we don't
Midways.
Go to Chicago, we fix them on the way out. But
very.
It was interesting where it was a room full. Maybe like this one, a little bit different ethnic composition. It was 95% black, 150% Democrat, as they told me before you went. Maybe that's how they count their votes.
China.
But anyway, it was interesting, right? The first part of the exchange was contentious because some people came with some questions that were, I think there were some people who had some real animus to me in that room. One woman, she asked me a question, walked straight out because she didn't like my answer on racial reparations.
I know.
But actually things changed pretty quickly when we got to the question of illegal mass migration, where they're literally converting the local high school into an encampment for migrants at a cost of $7,000 per migrant per month when the people in that community, Americans, are asking the question, what about me? And actually later it came up. Somebody else asked me on their own. I wasn't bringing up foreign policy. Why are we sending our money to Ukraine? Almost challenging me like I was a person who would, presumably because of being a Republican or whatever, believe that this was a good idea. And I explained that, no, this is actually a very bad idea. We should not be doing this. And
look at my African American over here. Look at him.
Which is why
are you the greatest? You know what I'm talking about?
Movement through the prism of even the Republican Party. I mean, the Republican Party means Very little. It doesn't mean anything to be a Republican. Well, it doesn't predict what you mean based on foreign policy. It doesn't predict what you think about free speech. It doesn't predict what you think about national security, state overreach. So that label means a lot less. But I think
Here in
that
Des Moines,
because
Iowa,
of what you just said.
Former President Donald Trump. Welcome.
As promised.
Stop it.
We'll do it again.
Quiet. Quiet.
Thank you very much. All right, Brett.
Mr. President, thank you very much. Thanks for coming with us.
Welcome, Mr. President. Great to see you.
The first major test for the Republican presidential nomination is almost here.
We're going to win the Iowa caucuses, and then we're going to crush crooked Joe Biden next November.
Tonight, former President Trump will address the most pressing issues facing the nation.
Our economy,
the debt of our country,
securing the border, getting rid of the woke ideology.
But a gauntlet of legal perils hovers over his campaign.
They're not after me, they're after you.
There's no confusion about who Trump is.
While his leading rivals unleash attacks.
He's running on a lot of the things he promised to do in 2016, but then did not do.
Chaos follows him, and we can't be a country in disarray.
5 days from the pivotal First in the Nation caucuses.
The path to
All right, get in the chat. Let me know. Do you guys think this is actually going to be a decent town hall? Do you think they're going to control him the entire time? Do you think they're going to not allow him to speak? Do you think every time he talks, do you think they're going to correct him, because he has to have right think? And let me know in the comments and the chat below. Let me know your thoughts on what you think this will happen. Fox does have some good-looking ladies. See, we're talking about ladies already. We're off to a good foot.
Good evening from the Iowa Event Center. Tonight, the last of 3 special town halls this week, just days before the First in the Nation Iowa caucuses, featuring Republicans who want to be president. I'm Brett Baer, and we're here in Des Moines as we take a live look outside. It's cold, it's brisk, it's snowy, but we're warm inside with a lot of questions from Iowans.
Indeed we are. Good evening, everybody. I'm Martha McCallum. Great to have you with us. Tonight, we are joined by a room full of Iowa Republican voters. Some of them are decided. Some of them are undecided. That's why they're here tonight. Some of them have been here more than one night over the course of this week.
I think so,
they
too.
Look forward to questioning the candidates, and tonight it's the former president and the GOP frontrunner. And we note once again that none of the campaigns have input into who was invited, what the questions are that will be asked tonight.
Thank you for being here. Mr. President, we appreciate you making the trek. And before we begin, we want to offer our condolences to you and the former First Lady, Melania Trump, for the loss of her mother last night.
Thank you very much. Great woman. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
We do want to note that today there was some breaking campaign news. Take a listen.
It's clear to me tonight that there isn't a path for me to win the nomination, which is why I'm suspending my campaign tonight for President of the United States. I am going to make sure that in no way do I enable Donald Trump to ever be President of the United States again.
So that was the big news. Late today, the former governor of New Jersey dropped out of the race in New Hampshire. You saw it there. There's a lot of speculation now that there could be a combining of forces of the people who supported him. He had about 12% there. And by some estimates, you're ahead by an average of 14 in the Real Clear Politics average polling in New Hampshire. So if that 12 goes to Nikki Haley, she could give you a run for your money there.
Well, you have Democrats in New Hampshire, and they vote, and you have independents in New Hampshire in large numbers, and they vote. And I have polls that show me leading by a tremendous amount in New Hampshire and a lot in Iowa, and nationwide we're leading by almost 60 points. So I'm not exactly worried about it. I understand New Hampshire very well. I've won it twice and did very well with New Hampshire. I love the people. They love me, I think. We did a good job for New Hampshire economically and even from the standpoint of the military, taking care of the vets. And I think we're going to do very well in New Hampshire. Now, Chris Christie was in, and he got a hot mic I heard about. I thought actually the bigger story wasn't the fact that he dropped out. Nobody cared too much about that. But he had a hot mic where he was talking to somebody about the weather, and he happened to say that she doesn't have what it takes. She'll be creamed in the in the election. And I mean, I know her very well, and I happen to believe that Chris Christie's right. That's one of the few things he's been right about, actually.
So you don't think it changes the dynamic much?
I don't know if it does or not. Look, we're winning tremendously here. I think we're 20, 24 points up. I brought some polls if you want to see them, just in case. But I think we're 24, 25 points up. But New Hampshire's interesting. It's a great place, a great state, unbelievable people. But they allow independents and Democrats to vote in the Republican primary. You say, what's that all about? So it's a little bit false in that regard. But even with that, I think we'll win substantially.
Mr. President, we want to get to our first questioner. Robert is an optometrist from Ankeny. Robert, where are you? Do you know which way you're going to caucus on Monday?
Yes, I do.
Okay, can we ask you?
I'm going to vote for the third time for President Trump.
Oh, okay. I like him. I knew I liked Robert.
What's your question for the former president?
I just wanted to say also thank you, President Trump, for your support of the vets. My wife and I and my oldest son are all veterans of the United States Army. Right. We appreciate what you do.
Thank you very much, Robert.
Some of my friends that supported you in 2020 are not this time because they believe a Trump presidency will bring 4 years of chaos due to your haters. What is your response to them?
Well, I think, first of all, I'm glad you're asking the question. And I'm very glad that you started off by saying you're with me because I want you on my side. I figured maybe Fox would have written that question if it was just the second part of the question. But just so you understand.
We didn't write any of the questions. You all wrote the questions, just to be clear.
We'll figure that one out pretty soon. But they have chaos now. They have chaos at the border. They have chaos in the military. People are going woke. We have the greatest military in the world, except for the top, where they want to, turn this beautiful thing we beat ISIS, knocked them out. It was supposed to take 4 years. I did it in literally 3 months. It was supposed to take 4 or 5 years. But we have chaos now. Look at today with Hunter Biden going into Congress and just sitting down and the bedlam that's been caused. Today you have chaos. We have, I think, more with Joe Biden. He can't put 2 sentences together, and he's representing us on nuclear weapons with Putin and Xi and all of these very smart people. The media hates when I say they're smart. But let me tell you, they're very smart and they're very cunning. And I think he had very little chaos. I think most of the chaos was caused by the Democrats constantly going after me. And remember this. Remember that with phony, Russia, Russia, Russia. I mean, if you look at Ukraine, 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 everything was phony. The FISA warrants, the lying to Congress. They had chaos. They were the ones that caused the chaos. We didn't have chaos. We got the biggest tax cuts in history, the biggest regulation cuts in history. I had no wars. I'm the only president in 72 years. I didn't have any wars. And they love that narrative, but they use that narrative because they have nothing else. Now, the new narrative they have, as you know, is I'm going to be a dictator. That's going to be the new narrative because a guy like Biden, there's nothing he can run on. Everything he's turned out, it's turned out badly. The border is a disaster, the worst border in history. I think the worst border in the history of the world. We had the best border in the history of our country. We never had a border like that. So I think we had very little chaos. I think we had tremendous success. And frankly, until COVID came along, and then we did a great job on that too. We never got the kind of credit that I got on the economy, but we had the greatest economy in history. And you take a look at our numbers. The numbers were so much better than they are right now. We had no inflation. We were energy independent. We had so much energy. We were ready to start supplying energy, selling energy to Europe, Asia. We would have started to pay down our debt. And then when COVID came along, we had to do a little bit of a course change. But we had an incredible 4 years. Again, the greatest economy in the history of our country with no inflation. Pretty good.
So I just want to follow up. Yeah, thank you for your
service. Bombs were still being dropped for sure.
One of the things that Ron DeSantis said in a town hall this week was that it might feel good to Republicans to vote for you and support you in the primary. But he felt they shouldn't leave the general election potentially up to 12 jurors in a D.C. court. What do you say to him about that? Well,
it's a witch hunt by its weaponization. If you look at it, it's election interference by Biden because he can't win it fair and square, so he's doing that. And interestingly, you see what happened in Georgia with Fannie Willis and $1 million almost to her boyfriend as the prosecutor of Trump. That one's blown up now. It's horrible what has taken place. But it's very interesting. When you look at Ron's numbers, he's practically out of the race. In fact, a lot of people say he's leaving the race after Iowa because he's doing so poorly. He's also doing very poorly, as you know, in New Hampshire. I mean, really poorly. And I'm leading Biden in every single poll that's been taken over the last month or two. I just see one. I'm leading in Michigan by 11. That's great. The auto workers are smart. They know that Biden has sold them down the tubes with the electric cars, all electric car mandate, the craziest thing I've ever heard. And they're going to all be made in China, too. So I think when you look at what we've done, we are doing a great job, and we did a great job, and that's why I'm leading in the polls by 60 and 70 points.
You know, in recent days, you seem to issue a warning that if in the courts, and even the U.S. Supreme Court, if they didn't treat you fairly, that maybe there would be bedlam in the country. Use that word, bedlam in the country. And in the last 2 days, at the same time, in the last two speeches, President Biden is focusing his campaign on the threat to democracy and political violence. Take a listen.
Yeah, like the first time.
Political violence is never, ever acceptable in the United States political system. Never, never, never.
Soda! So to Robert's question, this is clearly a focus of the Biden campaign. So can you say tonight that political violence is never acceptable?
Well, of course that's right. And of course, I'm the one that had very little of it. Take a look at wars. Again, I didn't start. I wasn't involved in wars. We beat the hell out of ISIS. We won 100%. We brought our troops back home. Look at the violence that we've had. Look at the violence we have recently.
Right, but when you say bedlam, what do you mean?
I think you have bedlam. I think you look at Joe Biden, it's bedlam. You have a man who can't lead. You have a man who can't find his way off a stage after he makes a speech that lasts for about 2 minutes. Now, I think bedlam is Joe Biden. I think that he's using this. This is just a political ploy. Trump is a dictator. He wants to be a dictator. You know, it's interesting. I did a show, Sean Hannity. Did you ever hear of him? He's a very nice man. And he said, essentially, you're not going to be a dictator, are you? Tell me. I think he was trying to give me a nicer question than maybe you guys would. He meant it very well. I said, I'm going to be a dictator. For one day, we're going to do two things. The border, we're going to make it so tight you can't get in unless you come in legally.
All you have to say is I'm not going to be a dictator. That's all you have to say.
After that, I'm not going to be a dictator. After that, I'm not going to be a dictator.
Just to say I'm not going to be a dictator.
So you weren't saying
no, and the press picks it up. So I said, I'm going to be a dictator for one day. They cut it. They go, I'm going to be a dictator. But they cut the rest of the sentence. No.
Yeah, they're going to do it again.
I'm dictator. I'm going to manage like we did. We were so successful that the country was coming together. It was actually coming together and coming together well. It was a beautiful thing to see. And we're going to do that again.
All right, let's bring in...
By the way, that's why I have the poll numbers that I have, because the people, I think this audience is an example. I mean, I asked a question. I said, how many people came last night? How many people came the night before? And I got a very honest answer. Not many compared to what we have. We had a great crowd and have a great crowd.
We want to hear from some more of them.
We do have a big crowd tonight. That's absolutely true. So let's hear from
Huge
Jean
crowd.
Jack, who is a teacher.
Jean
from
Jack.
Root, Iowa.
You're not.
Jane,
That's not your
so
real
much for being
name.
Here. And
Jean
you said
Jack.
that you plan to caucus for DeSantis.
It's
but
Harry
you're
Potter.
Not completely decided. Is that right?
No, I will be caucusing for DeSantis. But I will say, Mr. President, I am extremely grateful that in your first term, you accomplished so many great things, but it was also with the help of many great people. Since that time, you have publicly criticized and personally demeaned so many of them. If you're given 4 more years, how will you convince good people to take the risk of working with you?
So I have a lot of people that want to work with me. I have people calling just as I'm getting on the stage. I had a call from 2 of the very most important people in the military who want to come to work for me. Everybody wants to come to work for us. We're going to have no trouble. We had great people. We had a couple that were not great, stiffs, as I would call them. But that's true with anybody. But now I've gotten to know Washington. I've gotten to know the people. I know the best. I know the smart ones, the dumb ones, the weak ones, the strong ones. And I think you're going to see something like you've never seen before. And the people in this room know it. We did an amazing job. And the reason, we have support is because of the job we did. Now, you like Ron DeSantis, but he wouldn't even be around today. He'd be working in a pizza shop or perhaps a law firm if I didn't endorse him. I endorsed him, took him from nothing to winning an election. And I was all for him. And then one day he said he'd run against me 4 years later after I got him in. And I said, that's not a loyal person. We can't have that. That's not a loyal person. So I think you'll be very impressed with what we're going to do. We're going to have the greatest economy in the world, which we don't right now. We have horrible inflation. And, you're never going to get that 30% down. You might even it, but you're not going to get it down. So, but thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Let me just ask you a follow-up on that about who would be in your cabinet, in your administration. If you are the nominee, which I know you expect to be, who would be in the running for vice president?
Well, I can't tell you that, really. I mean, I know who it's going to be.
Give us a hint.
We'll do another show sometime.
Well, what about any of the people who you've run against? Would you be open to mending fences with any of them?
I will. I've already started to like Christie better.
Don't you dare say Nikki. Oh, God.
Christie for vice president?
I don't see it. That would be an upset. Christie for vice president. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to announce.
I do want to get to this other question before we move on to the big issues, and that is Jacqueline. She is from West Des Moines, and I think you said you're undecided, or you're making your decision.
That's correct.
And do you have a couple people?
I don't believe any of these people.
Trump and Vivek.
Okay.
It's Vivek.
Tonight for the former president?
My question is, I would like to know, what do you plan to do in your next term that you didn't quite get finished during your first term?
One of the things would be energy, even though I set records on energy, but I was going to be energy dominant. We were energy independent, and we had your bills down low. We had your gasoline for the car down to $1.87 a gallon. We had it down even lower than that at some points. Now it's at $4 and $5, and that's not acceptable. Your home heating bills are 4 and 5 times higher than they were with me. So I'd be doing that. I'd finish up the wall. We built over 500 miles of wall. That's one of the reasons we had and we got Mexico, by the way. We got Mexico, very importantly, to give us 28,000 soldiers free of charge. That's more money than anybody can even imagine, free of charge. And we also remain in Mexico policy, not remain here, remain in Mexico. So we did a lot of great things, and I would just say we're going to just keep expanding. We rebuilt the military. We even did something that hopefully nobody in this room needs, but right to try, where we're able to use space-age medicines that won't be approved for 4 or 5 years that work in many cases.
I'm going to come.
And I've saved thousands and thousands of lives with right to try. Thank you.
Yes, this is live.
So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to go talk about the economy when we come back. That is the #1 issue in every poll on voters' minds. So join us when we come right back with lots more questions for President Trump. Good to have you here, sir.
Well, I mean, he looks sharp. I'm not gonna lie. I will be an honest. I try not to pick my boyfriend and stick to him. He looks sharp for being the same age as Biden. That is ridiculous. Let's see how this debate is going.
She raised taxes when she was in South Carolina. That's on the
Don't worry, I'll go back.
She even
just on commercial.
A tax on groceries at one point. But I'm just thinking, have
you
seen your grocery bill lately? That's one of the things that's hitting working people the most, that groceries are going up probably twice as much what you do. But I also think it's important that we lift people up. So in Florida, we eliminated all sales tax on every baby item. Diapers, wipes, strollers, cribs. We want families to be able to prosper in this country. One of the things that's causing so much problem is the breakdown in the American family. We've done a lot in Florida to be able to rejuvenate that, but we need to make it easier for people to raise children in this country so that we can have strong families and a strong country.
Governor DeSantis, at a CNN town hall last week, you said you support a flat tax, which is a single income tax rate for every American. Under your plan, would working families pay the same tax rate as billionaires?
I would only do it if people are better off than they are now. I mean, I want people paying less taxes. Actually, if you think the last year we have numbers for, the federal government took in the highest percentage of taxes from the economy since World War II, and yet they're going deep into debt. We have a spending problem in this country. It's not a tax problem in this country. And if you had something that was simple and transparent, not only would that be better for economic growth, it's also better to end the weaponization of government.
Flat tax.
The IRS has been weaponized against conservatives going back to the Obama administration. I was there for that. No one's been held accountable for doing that. You look at the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Department of Justice. The weaponization of federal power ends the day I become the president of the United States. There's going to be a new sheriff in town. We're going to restore the constitutional accountability that our founding fathers envisioned when they formatted the Constitution. And, you know, I've talked to folks who have overbearing federal agencies. I mean, you have farmers who have the EPA coming on their farmland because there's maybe a puddle there, waters of the United States. Give me a break. So we're going to reduce the size of government, but we're also going to reduce the scope of government. And in Florida, I've actually delivered on this. Florida has the lowest percentage of state government workers per capita in the country, and the cost of our state government employees is the lowest in the country. No wonder why we're paying down debt while we're cutting taxes for people. That's the way you do it.
Governor DeSantis, 15-second point of clarification. The question was whether or not working families would pay the same amount.
They would pay less than what they're paying now. The way I view it is, okay, and you'd exempt people, so you would pay no tax for working class people. It would only be as you get above, because I think the first 40, 50 grand, that's just to subsist. And even some places you can't even do that. So you would have no tax up to a certain point, and then it would just be a single rate. So if somebody makes $100,000, they pay a certain amount. If someone makes $200,000, they make twice as much, and they pay twice as much.
Governor Haley?
Yes. I mean, first of all, you just can't trust what he says. I mean, that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, but you can trust her.
Tax in South Carolina, and I never once raised taxes, period. But what I will tell you is it is to call into question, why did he promise he'd never raise the debt limit, and he turned around and he raised it? And then you want to go and you see one side of what he says early on, and then he changes it. So here he goes and he says that he is all for energy independence. He wants to get the EPA out of the way. Well, why did he run on the fact that he wanted to ban fracking and ban offshore drilling? Why did he go and author that legislation to eliminate the renewable fuel standard that matters so much? And why now is he suddenly coming to Iowa and saying, oh, never mind, I don't mean all of that? Why did he call Trump and say that he wanted him to stop drilling 9 miles into federal waters? Why is he now saying this? Why do you come to the people of Iowa and say one thing when you campaigned and on day 2 of your office, you banned fracking, you banned offshore drilling, you turned around and authored and led the charge on banning the renewable.
Live from Des Moines. Let's get back to sports.
Back to this.
Let's get right back to our questions.
Based on your polls.
Flockhart. There she is.
Hi.
Shelley, thank you for coming out tonight.
Shelley.
What are you thinking about Monday night and who you're going to support? And what's your question for President Trump?
He's sitting right there.
Oh, thank you. I knew that. I knew that when I looked at you.
Bing, bing,
Thank you very much.
bing, bing,
Appreciate
bing.
it.
Yes, so my question is, you're a business owner. I'm a business owner. I own a small business and time is money. Would you ever allow a shutdown in the future?
A shutdown in terms of COVID? Or a shutdown in terms of budget? Because, you know, they're talking about a budget shutdown right now, but you're talking about a COVID
Let's do
shutdown.
COVID shutdown.
No, I wouldn't. And I never did. I let the governors make their decisions. And some of them, like from South Carolina, you know Henry McMaster, and frankly, North Dakota, a few of them. Tennessee, they didn't shut down at all. Florida did shut down. Ron DeSantis shut down. Or, as he's known, Ron DeSanctimonious. He shut his state down very violently, actually, and shut the highways down, the roads down. But we had, I'm a federalist in a sense, because that's the federalist way. No, I didn't actually have a shutdown, despite the fact that some people wanted to, and some people didn't want to. But we had some great governors. The governors that did the best job were Republican governors, and they were the ones that didn't shut down.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Whoa, love you.
People say, you know, that you listen too much to Dr. Fauci. Yeah. You were president at the time, could have perhaps influenced keeping things more open. And of course, Ron DeSantis would definitely argue with your characterization of how he handled it.
But if you go back and look at the records, you will see that the biggest fan of Dr. Fauci was Ron DeSanctimonious. He was a big fan. He said, I go by...
I don't think this is a winning argument for him.
I go by what Dr. Fauci said. He said that 2 months in, all the way through, and then eventually changed when it wasn't, that wasn't the dessert of the day. But Ron DeSantis was a big Dr. Fauci fan, and nobody wants to cover that. I say it every time. I don't care if he was or not, but, when they hit me with this question, Dr. Fauci was not a huge factor in my administration. He became a much bigger factor in Biden's administration. He was there. He was somebody that was in government for 40 years. He did it for 40 years. So a long time. And what do I say? You've been doing this for 40 years, get out. But he wasn't a big factor with me. He was a really big factor after I left with Biden.
On an economic shutdown, you said this week in an interview that if there's an economic crash, that you hope it happens now. Yeah. That you don't want to be Herbert Hoover.
I don't want to be Herbert Hoover.
You're not saying you're hoping for a crash, just to be clear.
No, I think this. I think the economy is horrible, except the stock market's going up. And I think the stock market's going up because I'm leading Biden in all of the polls. Every poll, every single poll for the last... With states that normally are not easy to lead. When you're leading in Pennsylvania, you're leading in Michigan, you're leading in Wisconsin. We're leading in virtually every state.
I'm sorry, sometimes he just says stuff that tickles me.
We're leading by a lot, nationwide. But I would say this, we have a situation which I believe the stock market goes up because I'm leading. I think if I wasn't leading, the stock market would be 25% lower. And I think, frankly, if I didn't win, I think the stock market would crash.
Yeah, but you said when there's a crash, I hope it's going to be during this next 12 months because I don't want to be Herbert Hoover.
Well, I think there will be a crash if I don't win. And I say that, and I do not want to be Herbert Hoover. Do you know who Herbert Hoover was?
Who's Herbert Hoover?
He was the president, and that was not a good time to be. I don't want to be Herbert Hoover, and I won't be Herbert Hoover.
So
who will you be?
When Governor Haley was here the other night, she talked about the $8 trillion added to the debt when you were president. How do you address that? What would you say?
Very easily. We were doing better than anybody has ever done for 2.5 years, and then COVID came along. We were getting ready to start selling oil to Asia, to Europe. We were going to pay down our debt, where we were at that time at like $29 trillion. Now we're $36 trillion. But we were going to start paying down our debt. We were going to do things that nobody could believe. You take a look at Saudi Arabia. You take a look at some of these countries. Take a look at Russia. I mean, Biden drove up the cost of energy. That's what caused inflation. But it's also what caused Putin to become rich enough to go and prosecute a war. And he never even talks about it. He's the one that caused that war, both rhetorically and by the fact that he drove up the price of oil to $100 a barrel, which is getting close to record. And Putin was making a fortune. He's the only guy who made a fortune during a war. If he didn't have it, I was at $40 a barrel. If he was at $40 a barrel, Putin wouldn't have done it. Now, he wouldn't have done it for another reason, me. He wouldn't have done it. But he also wouldn't have done it because he couldn't have done it because oil wasn't high enough. At $100 a barrel, he made a lot of money, and he's making a lot of money because it's so high.
So when
and it's also what caused the inflation. Because energy is so big, it's such a big deal that when energy goes up, if you make donuts, if you make hamburgers, anything you do, you have trucks that deliver your product, you have to heat your stoves, your ovens. Anything you do, it's all energy. And we had the highest cost of energy in history. When they talk about New Hampshire has the highest price of energy, the highest cost of energy of any state in the nation. They should vote for me because I'm going to cut their energy price in half.
So when Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis hit you again and again on this $8 trillion figure and call you a big government Republican, what do you say to them?
I say very simply, we were starting to pay down debt. We were going to pay down a lot of debt. When COVID came along, if I didn't inject this country with money, you would have had a depression, the likes of which you've never seen. You had to inject money.
It's going to happen.
That were going bankrupt, temporarily bankrupt, but they needed money. We helped businesses. If I didn't do that, you would have had a depression in this country. That was a very good investment. And now what they should be doing, instead of the kind of debt that they're building at record levels, they should be paying down their debt and they ought to go into the energy business instead of this green new scam business that they're in.
But what about the future? What about cutting spending? $34 trillion in debt. You know, let's look at what you would do in terms of getting that number down. What would you get rid of?
We have a lot of cutting, but we also have a lot of income. We have more liquid gold under our feet, energy, oil and gas, than any other country in the world, more than Saudi Arabia,
Some of that liquid gold.
Russia. And when I came in, we were number 4. When I left, you know, not that long a period of time, 4 years, we were number 1 by a lot. And we were soon going to double up Saudi Arabia and Russia combined. And we were going to make a lot of money. We have a lot of potential income. DeSantis wants to cut Social Security and Medicare. Nikki Haley wants to cut Social Security and Medicare. Nikki Haley wanted to raise the age from 65 to 74, 75,
but
or 70.
But only for young people in their 20s. I mean, that's going to run out of money.
Say. That's what they say.
So at some point, someone has to address it, right?
That's what they say when it starts. They say only for young people. It's only for young people. And then it doesn't work for young people, and they end up getting up to people that are of the age where it matters. No good.
All right, let's go to Kim, a small business owner.
Yeah,
from,
Kim.
Brines, is that correct? Kim, where are you?
That is correct.
Do you know who you're caucusing for Monday?
I am proud to say I am a caucus captain.
For?
President Trump.
With a white and gold hat.
I have that white and gold hat.
Do you know where you are right now, Kim? Shout out to Kim.
Thank you very much.
What's the question for the former president?
You said that you can take care of the border in 24 hours after taking office. How will you gather the several millions that have already entered our country illegally and return them to their country of origin?
Great question. It's not sustainable for our country. We have millions and millions of people here. It is not sustainable. Did you see in New York City where they're getting the regular students out and they're putting migrants in their place? We are going to have the largest deportation effort in the history of our country. We're bringing everybody back to where they came from. We have no choice. We have no choice.
You know,
thank you.
Denise is here as well. Denise, where are you? You know, Denise came to our town hall last night. She came in saying that she was, if I remember correctly, you were leaning towards President Trump.
Oh my God!
Some things last night that
almost said something mean, but I'm not going to.
So where are you tonight?
I spoke with a lot of my really close friends after last night. They were all up and wanted to know how it went, and we got back to President Trump. We just.
Oh, I love you.
I'm going to come.
He just mentioned, I think, something that you're concerned about. What's your question?
You just answered part of it, that our kids were displaced in New York City, in the place of illegal migrants. So what I want to know, in the spirit of making America great again, can you do something about the sanctuary cities?
Yeah. Well, they're going to be ended because the Democrats are going to end them because you can't sustain it. If you look at New York, you have a mayor of New York who now is really hostile to the administration because New York City.
Okay, who did that?
I love New York.
That's not funny.
It's had a tough time. The previous mayor was the worst mayor in the history of our country.
Who did that?
De Blasio. Do you ever hear of De Blasio, the worst? But what's happened is this country cannot sustain 15 or 16 million people, because I think that's the real number. I think by the time his administration ends, and hopefully quickly, it's going to be 18 million people. That's bigger than New York State. That's bigger than just about every state other than one or two. 18 million people. Remember this. Many of those people come from jails and prisons. Many of those people come from mental institutions and insane asylums. And many of those people are terrorists. You know, I saw on Fox the other day, it was horrible but beautiful, because from my standpoint, in 2016, they had no terrorists that they know of that came into the country. None. You know, I had the travel ban. They call it the Trump travel ban. They tried to make a big deal. The Supreme Court very intelligently approved it. Without that, we would have had blow-ups. So we had no terrorist attacks at all during my 4 years. We had the Trump travel ban. And by the way, Iran was broke. Iran was broke. I said to China, if you buy oil from Iran, you're not dealing in here. They immediately dropped. India, France, Italy, all of these countries were buying from Iran. Iran would give out billions of dollars to terrorists. They had no money. I watched a Democrat congressman the other day on one of the shows. And he said, I'll say one thing about Trump, he said, Trump. I'll say one thing about Trump. When he did that number on Iran, they were broke. They were absolutely broke. When I left, they were broke. They had no money. There was no money for Hamas, for Hezbollah. There was no money for anybody. They had no money. And you would say that, too. I mean, I think even the two of you would say they were absolutely stone cold. And you know how much money they have now? In 3 years, under Biden, they have $250 billion. Again, the energy business is a big business. And not to mention the 5 hostages that they paid $6 billion for. Not to mention they got $10 billion for supplying some electricity to Iraq, which, by the way, they own. And Iraq has $300 billion, and essentially it's a subsidiary of Iran. It should have never happened. Iraq, remember I used to say a long time ago when I was a civilian, now I'm sort of a civilian, but I think I'll never be quite a civilian again. I'd love to be. But I used to say,
you mean you're going to be a king?
Go into Iraq. Don't do it. Don't do it. But if you're going to do it, keep the oil. Do you remember keep the oil? They didn't keep the oil. So they have $300 billion. And we have nothing. We have nothing. You know, they used to say about wars, to the victor belong the spoils. We go into some place we obliterate it, and then we leave. We are run by fools. We're run by stupid people. But we ran it very smart for 4 years, and we won everything. We won everything.
Mr. President, you're talking a lot about policy. You get questions about what a second term is going to look like. When you're in your rallies, you spend a lot of time talking about retribution. And so there are questions about how much a second term of a Donald Trump presidency, second term,
here we go, dictator stuff. Oh, God.
And looking backwards and grievances, and how much would be looking forward?
Well, first of all, a lot of people would say that that's not so bad. Look what they did. Russia hoax, the FBI Twitter hoax, the 51 intelligence agents hoax, all of these different hoaxes that they did. I mean, you know, a lot of people would say that's probably quite normal. I'm not going to have time for retribution. We're going to make this country so successful again. I'm not going to have time for retribution.
It's good. It's good.
Remember this. Our ultimate retribution is success. When we had, just prior to the China virus coming in, if you don't mind, I'd like to be accurate as opposed to COVID. It is the China virus. It came out of Wuhan. And I said a long time ago in your show, it came out of Wuhan. They were saying it came out of caves, bat caves, 2,000 miles away. It came out of Italy. It came out of France. No, it came out of Wuhan, the labs. And by the way, I don't think it was done I think it was done out of incompetence. That's what I think. I believe that a scientist went out, said hello to his girlfriend, and that was the end of that. She died, and then people started dying all over the place. But who knows? Who knows? I can tell you one thing. I got along with President Xi, but I took in $400 billion in tariffs and taxes from China. And one of the reasons China's not doing so well today is because of those tariffs. And Biden wants to cut them. You know, he got paid off by China after all, so he wants to help the people that gave him a lot of money. But he's a Manchurian candidate in a true sense. He got money from China, he got money from Russia. You remember the debate where Chris Wallace, how is he doing, I wonder? But Chris Wallace, when I said to Biden, I asked him a question. I said, how come you got $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife? And Chris Wallace wouldn't let me ask me. I said, why are you stopping this? Now it's turned out to be a big deal. He got $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife. I tell you this, we're going to have a success that's so great that hopefully, I won't have time for retribution. There won't be retribution, there'll be success.
Mr. President, before we wrap up this, you know, there is this report, House Democrats, documents that say that nearly $8 million in payments to your businesses from foreign governments, China included, Saudi Arabia, while you were in office. They say Article 1 of the Constitution says you can't accept money from foreign governments while president. Would you pledge to divest from your business in a second term as other presidents have done? So that's what they're reporting.
I own hotels all over I don't get free money. Somebody rents a hotel room, et cetera, much money I gave back. In fact, I didn't have to do it. You know, George Washington was a very rich man. People don't know that. In his essentially White House, which wasn't built, but they had an office, he had a business desk and he had a country desk right next to each other. You're allowed to do that. I didn't do it. I put everything in trust. And if I have a hotel and somebody comes in from China, that's a small amount of money. You know, it sounds like a lot of money. That's a small. But I was doing services for that. People were staying in these massive hotels, these beautiful hotels, because I have the best hotels. I have the best clubs. I have the best clubs. I have great stuff. and they stay there and they pay. I don't get $8 million for doing nothing like Hunter. I don't get $500,000. I don't get $500,000 for doing a painting. It's not a bad idea, I guess, if you can get away with it. When I heard that one, I said, there's no way they get away with that. But they got away with that, I guess. They got away with it. Now, we have, there was an emoluments lawsuit against me where the radical left sued me for that, and I won the suit. And the judge said, they go to his hotels. What's he going to do?
There you go. We want to hear more from Iowa voters. Sure. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back here in Des Moines with more of our town hall with former President Donald.
Heck yeah, dude. We'll be back. Let's check on the other Republican debate that everyone cares about.
Governor Haley told CNN last week she does not support that. Do you?
So we got to support Israel in word and in deed, in public and in private. And they need to be able to finish the job. Joe Biden is kneecapping them. He'll say one thing, then he goes, and his base doesn't like Israel, so he's got to do all these other things.
Drop in the comments in the live chat. Let me know your thoughts on Trump so far.
Murder of Jews since the Holocaust. Hamas wants a second Holocaust. They want to annihilate the state of Israel. So I think to be a good ally, you back them in the decisions that they're making with respect to Gaza. Look, there's a lot of pluses and minuses with how you're doing this. But for us to be sitting in Washington, second-guessing them, I don't think that's the right way. We also have a disagreement, Governor Haley and I. When she was at the UN, she supported the idea of a two-state solution between Israel and the Palestinian Arabs. The problem with that is the Palestinian Arabs don't recognize Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state. So doing a two-state solution doesn't create something that's going to lead to a lasting peace. It creates a stepping stone for Israel's destruction. So under no circumstances, as president, am I going to pressure Israel to risk their security to do a so-called two-state solution. She was wrong when she embraced that, and we're right to say we trust Israel to make these decisions. They're a good ally of ours. We should trust their judgment on these sensitive issues.
Governor DeSantis, 15 seconds. 15-second clarification. Do you support the mass removal of Palestinians from Gaza?
So as president, I am not going to tell them to do that. I think there's a lot of issues with that. But if they make the calculation that to avert a second Holocaust, they need to do that. I think some of these Palestinian Arabs, Saudi Arabia should take some. Egypt should take some. They've never been willing to accept any of these folks in their own neighborhood.
Thank you, Governor Haley.
Well, first of all, we need to understand the reason we need to support Israel is Israel's a bright spot in a tough neighborhood. They are the tip of the spear when it comes to defeating
Southside
terrorism.
Chicago.
It has never been that Israel needs America. It has always been that America needs Israel. When I was at the United Nations, I fought every day for Israel. And if you would have listened to what I said at the United Nations, a two-state solution wasn't something that was possible because Israel would always come to the table and the Palestinians wouldn't. But right now, we have to make sure that Israel has the support that it needs. There should be three things. Give Israel whatever it wants to get the job done. 2, eliminate Hamas once and for all. And 3, do whatever it takes to bring the hostages home. But it's really rich that Ron is going to act like he suddenly cares for Israel when he brought the person to Iowa that's the most anti-Israel Republican in the state, the person that went and voted against Israel's right to exist in Congress, the person that voted with the squad against anti-Semitism on college campuses.
Thank you, Governor.
And you brought that person to Iowa to go and campaign with you. If that's your friends,
Governor
I'd hate
DeSantis,
to see who the
she's
rest of
obviously
your
referring
friends
to Congressman Tom Massey from Kentucky.
Yeah, I mean, that's just cheap garbage. But here's the thing: when the attacks happened against Israel, I knew it was going to be a big deal for Florida. We have one of the largest Israeli American populations in the country, and we've been a haven for Orthodox Jews in particular since I've been governor. And you know what? Biden wasn't helping Americans get out of the war zone. These are people that were stranded. So I did an executive order. We scrambled planes, and we rescued over 700 Americans from Israel and brought them back safely to the state of Florida. You got to step up and you got to lead when things like this are happening. We also have gone after the anti-Semitism on our campuses. We did that early in my administration. You didn't see our college presidents doing some of the things that you.
Yeah, let me just clear something up, okay? Let me clear something. This is my real hair, okay? My wife loves it. It turns her on. It gets the people going. Everyone is super pumped. I had a special surgery done in Turkey, and it cost me $35,000. I had to put it on 3 different credit cards. Totally worth it. But let me just say something. If your hair is thinning, if you have a receding hairline, get the extreme treatment today. Fly to Turkey. The time is right. Do it before another war. Just get it done. I'm just going to leave it at that. Okay? You don't want to be, just somebody who is struggling in life. And I want you to also, when you look for me in public, I look like this. Hands down.
Inside.
Oh, it's back.
Towards one person or another?
All got leanings here in Iowa.
Oh, another blue person.
Yeah, well, for me, it all comes down to this question.
Okay.
So between you, sir, President Trump, and Ron DeSantis, because you both talk a lot about pro-life, your record, and that's my number one issue and the cry of my heart is justice for all people. And I've been, vocal and celebrating with you all of your pro-life victories from the past. But then in this campaign, you've also blamed pro-lifers for some of the GOP losses around the country, and you've called heartbeat laws like Iowa's terrible. And so I just like some clarity on this because it's such an important question to me. Okay. I'd like for you to reassure me that you can protect all life, every person's right to life, without compromise.
So that's
without
a great question.
compromise.
I appreciate it too.
What was that at the end?
You wouldn't be
Made me
asking
uncomfortable.
that question, even talking about the issue, because for 54 years they were trying to get Roe v. Wade terminated, and I did it, and I'm proud to have done it. They wanted to get it back, right? You wouldn't have that. There would be no question. Nobody else was going to get that done but me.
Yeah.
And we did it, and we did something that was a miracle. When I walked onto the stage today, a gentleman in the back, probably works for Fox, nice guy, said, "Sir, I'd like to thank you." I said, "For what?" He said, "You saved 2 million lives in the last 3 years. You saved 2 million lives." And I said, "Thank you very much." I knew exactly what he meant. 2 million lives. And nobody's done more in that regard than me. Now, I happen to be, for the exceptions, like Ronald Reagan, with the life of the mother, rape, incest. I just have to be there, I think probably 78% or so, Paul, about 78%. It was Ronald Reagan. He was for it. I was for it. But I will say this. You have to win elections. Otherwise, you're going to be back where you were, and you can't let that ever happen again. You've got to win elections. If you look at it, Ron DeSantis, I don't know what he really believes, because, you never know with a politician, and he's just another politician as far as I'm concerned. But his poll numbers have gone down to a level that he's going to be out of the race very soon. He's going to be out very soon. I watched him last night. He's standing up with his shoes, his fancy shoes. And he's going to be out of the race within
his fancy shoes. I just missed that.
Before New Hampshire.
Dang it!
I don't know if that were the reason. I hope it wasn't the reason. I hope it's for other reasons. I can see a lot of other reasons why he shouldn't be, but he's doing very, very poorly. It happened to coincide with that, because a lot of people say if you talk 5 or 6 weeks, a lot of women don't know if they're pregnant in 5 or 6 weeks. I want to get something where people are happy. This has been tearing our country apart for 50 years. Nobody's been able to do anything. And again, you can only ask that question, and you ask it brilliantly, and I understand exactly where you're coming from. I love where you're coming from. But we still have to win elections.
He loves it.
And they've used this. We have some great Republicans, and they're great on the issue, and you would love them on the issue. And a lot of them have just been decimated in the election. Decimated. I mean, absolutely.
Do you know what that word means?
We're going to come up with something that people want and people like. I would love you to. First of all, you have to go with your heart. Okay, you have to go with your heart first. Go with your heart, your mind. Go with it. But you do also have to put in there a little bit. You have to win elections. But if it weren't for me with Roe v. Wade, you wouldn't even be talking about this. You wouldn't be asking that question, because we're right back. I remember this. They're the radicals. We're not the radicals, because they'll kill a baby. Remember, I had the debate with crooked Hillary Clinton, which I don't call her crooked anymore. I use that now for Joe Biden, as you know. I call her beautiful Hillary. She's a beautiful woman. But in the debate with Hillary Clinton, they said, she's willing to rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month. And I never heard this. It happened to me. It just came to me during that debate. I didn't go up there thinking I was going to say that. And she even winced. Nobody wants to see that happening after a certain period of time. Nobody. They're the radicals, because they're willing to kill
She's
the
not
baby
happy about this answer.
in 8 months, 9 months, or even
She's
after
like,
birth. If you remember the former governor of Virginia, where he said, you kill the baby after the 9th month, or even after you set the baby aside. and you have a conversation with the mother. And if the conversation, can you imagine? But these are the radicals. We're not the radicals. We are not the radicals.
Ron DeSantis, people are going to jump all over this tomorrow. 100%.
There has to be a little bit of a concession one way or the other. And I think, I want to get it right. I have to get it right. But without what I did, you would never even be asking that question.
Just say you're okay with it. It's okay. Just say it.
For 54 years, they campaigned on that issue.
That's your stance. That's your idea. Just say it.
I think you're going to be happy in the end. Thank you.
You're going to be happy, but we got to win elections.
Thank you very much for that question. Let's go to Bo. Bo, you're from Madrid, Iowa.
Madrid.
I'm so sorry.
Madrid.
I knew I could get through every city, I thought. Well, Madrid. Do you know how you're going to caucus?
Trump, 100%.
Oh, I like
Trump, 100%. Look at my mustache, baby. Hey, he needs to go to Turkey.
Go ahead.
Okay,
go to Turkey. You can get a hair like me, bro.
Global tensions and keep the United States out of foreign wars.
Yeah. Do it through peace through strength. I just saw something where I was the only president for 78 years. No war started with. Now I wiped out ISIS. I did a thing that was, I won't go into names, I won't go into specifics, but we did a thing that nobody thought was possible. Did it very quickly. I withdrew from Syria. I withdrew from Iraq. I withdrew. They want to put people back. We're in countries that don't even want us. We're with countries that a lot of you never even heard the names of these countries. There's a great leader, in my opinion, is very strong. Some people say it's terrible to say that, but he is. Viktor Orban, he's the prime minister of Hungary. And they asked him, what would you do? There are wars all over the world right now. He said, what I do is make sure the American people vote for Donald Trump for president, because when he was president, China feared him. I don't want to be feared, but he used the term. I'm not using the term. President Xi's a very tough cookie. But I think they did fear us. China feared him. Russia feared him. Everybody. I even got along with Kim Jong-un. Getting along with people with hundreds of nuclear weapons is not a bad thing. They want to make it like a bad thing. It's a very good thing. But peace through strength. They didn't want to mess around. It would have never happened in Ukraine. Russia would have never gone in. Would have never happened. The recent attack on Israel would have never happened. 0% chance that was going to happen. They see a weak president in our country, and they did something that was unthinkable. So we're going to have peace through strength. We're not going to have to fight.
So on the other side,
with that being said, you always have to be prepared. And I rebuilt our entire military. And think of it, Biden gave $85 billion worth of our military to Afghanistan so stupidly. Brand new tanks and planes and everything. 700,000 rifles and guns, 70,000 vehicles, many of them armor-plated vehicles. And by the way, people died. 13 great soldiers died. I've gotten to know the families very well. Many horribly hurt. And hundreds of people killed when you include both. Hundreds of people killed in the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. So I really appreciate the question. And I appreciate very much that you're with me. And I'm with you, too.
So from the other side of the party, there are many like Governor Haley who said that you are now more of an isolationist than you were. And that you got many concessions from NATO members as president to increase their defense budgets.
Hundreds of billions of dollars.
But there's a real concern what a second Trump term would mean. Would you be committed to NATO, for example, in a second Trump term?
Depends if they treat us properly. Look, NATO is taking advantage of our country. The European countries took advantage of, I want to use a word starting with an S, but I don't want to do it because I see some young, very good-looking children in the audience, and I assume they're watching on television.
I'm right here, baby.
They took advantage of us on trade, and then they took advantage of us on our military protection. Of the 28 countries at the time, only 8 countries were paid up. We were paying the difference. And I went to them, I said, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you. And they said, do you mean that? I said, I mean that. And the next day, billions of dollars poured into NATO. The reason they have money right now to prosecute what they're doing with helping Ukraine is because of the money I got them. So, peace through strength.
Mr. President, we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
being here in Des
President.
Moines.
Good to have you with us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So we're going to be right back with just a quick final segment right after this timeout. Stay with us.
We're going to be right back fact-checking Trump. And there's 6 minutes left. What a short little town hall. Let's check in on our other Republicans.
Cave to the woke mob every single time.
Governor Haley, a response?
Government was intended to secure the rights and freedoms of the people. It was never meant to be all things to all people. And what we don't need is government politicizing anything. The first thing I'll say is, again, DeSantisLies.com, because I have never said anything related to the transgender stuff he says. I have always fought to protect kids. I've always said that boys need to go into boys' bathrooms, girls need to go into girls' bathrooms, that we shouldn't have any gender transitions before the age of 18. Just like we don't have tattoos before the age of 18, we shouldn't have gender transformation or puberty blockers. But I will tell you that it's really
Vivek.
interesting that Ron talks about this Disney, because Disney has been woke for a long time. They were against the immigration situation that Trump was doing. They were against the Paris Climate Agreement when I did it. They were against the pro-life bill in Georgia. Ron didn't have any problem with that. As a matter of fact, he gave them the largest corporate subsidies in Florida history. He had a tech exemptions that he didn't give any tech exemptions to anybody but Disney. Yet when they went and criticized him, he got thin-skinned and suddenly started to fight back. We don't need government fighting against our private industries. We are not woke in South Carolina. I will always invite businesses to come to South Carolina. But the one thing you don't do is government doesn't bully our businesses, and that can't happen. And Ron is determined. Anybody that offends him, he goes after them, and he'll use government.
She just said she's always fought to protect kids, but when she was governor of South Carolina, they had a bill to protect girls from men going into the bathroom. She killed it, and she's bragged about it for years that happened. She didn't stand up and fight the kids. She caved to the Chamber of Commerce and the corporation. She said she's against the surgeries for minors. That wasn't what she said this summer. She was asked about it. It's on video, and she said the law should stay out of it. I criticized her in the last debate. She took a lot of heat. So then she's flipped and said that there now should be the law involved. She said she supports a federal law. I'm glad she's come to the right thing. But here's the deal. It goes back to that young kid in the town hall that she had, where he said, Nikki Haley, you are the new John Kerry. You're for it before you are against it.
He waited for the clap.
It's a shame that we had to put up DeSantisLies.com. Honestly, if he would spend as much time trying to prove why he thinks he would be a good president, he would be doing a lot better in the polls. The reason that he spent and blown through $150 million and gone down in the polls is because he spent more time trying to lie about me than he is about telling the truth about himself.
So you didn't kill the bathroom bill.
I have never said that we should have any gender operations or surgeries. You're lying about that.
Governor Haley has the floor.
When it comes to the bathroom bill, I will say, first of all, that was 10 years ago. We had a handful of kids that may have had that issue. And what I made very clear at that time in the state is girls go into girls' bathrooms, boys go into boys' bathrooms. And if there are any other exceptions, they use a private bathroom. I have fought for women's sports and making sure that biological boys are not women's sports, and I'll continue to do that. I have always said we have to raise strong girls. Strong girls become strong women become strong leaders. None of that happens if we have biological boys.
Governor Haley, according to the U.S. Department of Education, in 2017, the year you left office, South Carolina schools ranked in the bottom 10 nationwide in both reading and math scores. Given that, why should voters concerned about K-12 education support you rather than other Republicans?
Because I think what we did was we knew that there was an issue. We knew in South Carolina if a child couldn't read by third grade, they were 4 times less likely to graduate high school. So what we did is we started holding kids back instead of pushing them forward. We brought in their parents. We did reading remediation, and we set them up for success. We've got to do that all over our country. We only have 31% of 8th graders in our country are proficient in reading. 27% of 8th graders are proficient in math. If we don't do something, we're going to be in a world of hurt 10 years from now. That's why I want to take as many federal programs from D.C. as we can and send them down to the state level. Think education. We can move a lot of K-12 programs down to the state level, reduce the strings that are attached, and that way states can handle it themselves. People in Iowa know best what types of education they need. Secondly, parents should decide what types of education their children
It's ironic that she's lecturing on education when she leads a state that's ranked 42 in education out of 50.
No parent should
and the other states below that are not democratic states.
Screw you, Brian Tyler. I was
for
educated.
Every parent to see. And we need to start putting vocational classes.
Okay.
Donald Trump. We hope you enjoyed the past 3 nights with the candidates.
That was it?
As, former president works the crowd here, signing some hats. We also
I thought they were just gonna
all the voters who attended our 3 town halls. They break.
But they didn't give him like a final thought.
And asked some really important questions that are really top issues for the candidates in this race.
Did you see that?
I'm trying to find an old picture of me and Nikki Haley. If I find it, I'll put it up here. I'm very embarrassed by it.
Event center. There it is. For hosting us. No weather report.
See if I can find
it's quite
it.
clear what's happening here. So join us, please, this weekend for Fox's
Praying
special
I can't
coverage,
find it.
Previewing the Iowa caucuses. Neil Cavuto kicks off on Saturday.
Where is
the
it?
story will be here on Sunday in its regular time at 3 p.m. Eastern from here in Des Moines.
And Special Report will also have a show this Sunday from Des Moines at our normal slot, 6 p.m. Eastern. Monday night, the election special, Democracy 24. The Iowa caucuses will air at 10 p.m. Eastern. We'll have some of our biggest names here with us in Des Moines, along with Fox reporters spread out all over the place. Have a great evening from Des Moines. I'm Brett Baird.
And I'm Martha McCallum. Good night from Des Moines, Iowa. Gutfeld is...
Oh, man. That was, okay, let's go back to the other Republican debate.
If you just took our charter school population, 365,000 kids,
In fact, most
disproportionately low income, racial ethnic minorities, if they were their own state, they'd be in the top 5 in performance. Everyone can succeed, but you got to have a leader who's going to fight the teachers' unions and is going to deliver school choice. Governor Kim Reynolds did that here in Iowa, who's endorsed me. Nikki Haley did not. She failed. And if she can't do it in the reddest state in the country of South Carolina, how are you going to be able to succeed in Washington, D.C.? Now, in terms of what we've done, we believe in empowering parents, and there's certain standards about what's age and developmentally appropriate. It's wrong to have pornographic materials in 4th or 5th grade. And you know what's happened? They'll go to school board meetings all around the country, they'll start reading it, and they say, oh, no, it's too graphic. You can't read it here. You can't put it on the 6 o'clock news. Well, if it's not appropriate in a school board meeting and you can't put it on the 6 o'clock news, why are you jamming it down the throats of a 4th grader?
So, Governor,
whoa.
Just the point of...
Colorado parents, do you want to get paid to take care of your own children? If your child is living with chronic...
poor kids throughout this country.
Governor Haley?
That was intense. Sorry.
You know, I have fought for school choice in my entire career because I think parents know their children best, and I think we should always do that. That's why we passed charter school legislation in our state. That's why we empowered homeschoolers in our state. That's why we changed the funding formula so we lifted up challenged areas without bringing down the wealthy areas. We wanted school choice. I had a Republican legislature that wouldn't do it, but we pushed hard to get that done. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it across the country, but what we have to do is we have to make it state-centric. We've got to get these programs down to the state level. We've got to let the focus be on teachers. Teachers right now have to be the guidance counselors, the pastors, the nurses, and everything in between. And oh, by the way, they have to teach to a test. That's not what teachers want. Teachers want to do what they were taught to do. And that means math, science, reading, history, English, arts. That's it. Schools can't be all things to all kids. They need to let the parents parent. They need to let teachers teach. And we need to go back to the basics in education so we get our kids ready.
That was the problem, though. That word salad is the problem. She says she's always supported school choice, and she failed to deliver. She blames other people. Leadership is about getting things done. Stop making excuses.
Stop it.
If leadership's about getting things done, how did you blow through $150 million in your campaign and you were down in the polls?
So
you are not a manager. No, now I'm going to say.
I think it's very instructive about
if
what
she's going to do this.
She thought that was such a good point.
I think I have the floor.
Governor DeSantis,
like that's as important
Governor
as the
DeSantis,
kids.
Governor.
Wait, so this is what we missed versus not watching the town hall? This is so much worse.
Go ahead.
I think I hit a nerve. What I will tell you is, look, if you can't manage a campaign, it's been a revolving door of political people in and out of his campaign. You've heard of campaign people going to blows with each other because they can't all agree. $150 million, and he spent more on private planes than commercials. I flew commercial. I stayed in residence inns.
Boeing.
We went and saved our money. We made sure we spent it right because you have to understand it's not your money. It's other people's money, and you have to know how to handle it. it. If he can't handle the financial parts of a campaign, how's he going to handle the economy when it comes to the White House? And he goes and he's demeaning. He has been demeaning me over and over again.
Demeaning me?
DeSantisLies.com, because he thinks it makes him look bigger. But in the one
let's
basic
go.
thing, you've campaigned for president in one state. You're invisible in New Hampshire. You're invisible in South Carolina. You're in 5th place. You've got $150 million, and you've gone down in the polls in Iowa. Why should we think you can manage or do anything in this country?
Thank you.
DeSantisLies.com. This is a great window into leadership because she's focused on a lot of political process stuff, things that no voter cares about, and she couldn't tell you why she failed to deliver school choice to people in her state after she promised it. So she says somehow that is the indicative of, no, leadership is about producing results. We've produced the results in Florida. We did universal school choice. We've cut taxes. We banned sanctuary cities. On and on down the line, everything I promised I delivered. She doesn't have a rationale for why she couldn't get it done. That is poor leadership. You look at me, everything I promised I would do, I've delivered.
Look at us.
Expect nothing less when I'm the president of the United States.
We're gonna move on now.
I need to respond to that.
Go ahead.
He doesn't really
So
believe
you want to
that.
talk about leadership, and he wants to go and demean and put
This guy's
down.
a lefty, by the
Let me
way.
tell you what leadership is. Leadership is the fact that I went into South Carolina that had 11% unemployment rate. Leadership is the fact that we turned it into an economic powerhouse, building planes, building cars, building tires. We were named the Beast of the Southeast. We moved the 11% unemployment down to 4%. We announced jobs in every county in the state. We moved 35,000 people on welfare to work. We changed our prison system to where we now have the lowest recidivism rate in the country. We passed voter ID. We passed tort reform. We did pension reform. We paid down our debt. We cut taxes. We made sure that people were proud again. We did E-Verify in the first 6 months, not 5 years like Ron. So don't go and pick on school choice and say that that's leadership. Okay. When I got to the UN, we cut $1 billion off the top, and we took the kick me sign off of our backs, and America was respected again at the UN. I know what leadership is.
We're moving on to a topic, governors, that both of you have made central to your campaigns, and that is China. Governor Haley, American farmers were hurt by former President Trump's trade war with China. As a result, his administration paid out $28 billion in subsidies to farmers.
Okay, you guys
have
choose.
vowed to be
Are they
even
still talking?
tougher
They are.
than Donald Trump on China. If your trade policies also end up hurting America's farmers, are you prepared to cut a check just like he did?
Well, that's why Trump should be here on this debate stage. He should have to defend it. So first of all, I've said China is our #1 national security threat. I fought them every single day at the United Nations. I know what they're capable of. The first thing we have to do is we have to make sure we stop selling them any land and we take back the land they already purchased. We need to go to our universities and we say, you either take Chinese money or you take American money, but the days of taking both are over. We need to stop all of the technologies that are going to China. Biden approved 70% of them. Trump approved even more than that. We have to tell them we're going to end all normal trade relations with them until they stop murdering Americans with fentanyl. And we need to make sure we build up our military. But the biggest thing, I was very attached to China in terms of trade. And the one thing we'll do is we won't wait for the China to pull the rug out from under Iowans. What we'll do is instead...
Yeah, don't wait for the China.
To where we have friends. We will go and build partnerships. India, Japan, South Korea, Philippines, Australia, Israel. We will go and move that trade over. Right now, you can ask our farmers. When they go and they buy from China, China orders, cancels the order, then goes and tries to buy it cheap. That's what China does. Our farmers deserve better than that. We will get them trade deals. When I was governor in South Carolina, we sold and we exported everything we were making in South Carolina. When I'm president, we will sell and export everything that's being made in Iowa to those that are our friends, not our enemies.
Thank you. Governor DeSantis, your response?
The way you deal with China is threefold. One, we need more hard power in the Indo-Pacific. I'm a Navy guy. We need more sea power. We're going to build that up.
He's a seaman.
We're going to have a strategy to deny their ability to invade Taiwan or to get beyond the first island chain. On the current course, they're going to take advantage of Biden, and we're going to rue the day when that happens. Second, we got to decouple our economy, particularly things that are national.
The biggest problem with Ron DeSantis is that once he has like a saying, there's a new sheriff in town, they're going to rue the day. He is just like every other politician, and it's just like, I feel like you're not here. You are just waiting to say these lines. And that's my biggest problem with him in his campaign trail, is that I don't feel like I'm hearing the genuine person. I'm hearing what he's either told to say or what he thinks is a good line. And that's my biggest problem with him. You could take it, you could leave it. If he comes and he tries to run again, that needs to change. He needs to be present. Just a thought. Nikki, Celtics or Lakers? Yeah.
That Florida is a
She's going Celtics. LeBron sucks.
these companies to do business. And then when we called you out on it, you had the website scrubbed. So we know that that's the case. What?
All right, let's see what's going on in this, Tim. Oh, Vivek's still talking.
And instituting accountability for those failures comes on a couple of levels. First is generations of foreign wars that have not advanced our interests. $7 trillion of our national debt owed to the wars in both Iraq and Afghanistan that palpably could just look at the results. 20 years later, for God's sake, the Taliban is still in charge. 20 years later, Iraq is a more broken country than we showed up, sending tens of thousands, about 15,000 of America's sons and daughters' lives sacrificed in those two wars, adding $7 trillion to our national debt. So yes, I do hold accountable the bipartisan foreign policy establishment, some of whom are back at it again, available on the Republican ticket to be voted for U.S. president, to be trotted back and to bring back a Dick Cheney vision for our foreign policy that should be relegated to the dustbins of history. So yes, we need accountability. I think we also need accountability in the nearer term for the self-hatred that our own military is perpetuating in our own ranks. And there's a connection between these two. I'm referring to the rise of sort of the woke infection in our U.S. military ranks. These are not two separate issues. What happened is that General Mark Milley's of the world wanted to deflect the left-wing criticism. Keep in mind, it was generally a Republican idea to favor the Iraq War. The left used to hit him for that, to say, okay, well, we'll just say the magic words, systemic racism, white rage, whatever you want us to say, but go away. We'll blow the woke smoke to deflect accountability for the institutional failure of the military itself. How do we get this right? Restore the true purpose of the U.S. military. What is it? To win wars, to actually avoid wars through being strong in protecting our own homeland right here at home, which is more vulnerable than it has ever been. So I believe that the top purpose of the U.S. military should be to protect Americans against threats, make our national defense spending directed towards our own national defense. That includes cyber attacks, super EMP attacks that could take out our electric grid in a matter of days that we're more vulnerable to now than ever. I do view it as an invasion on our own southern border, and I believe an outward-facing function for our U.S. military at our border, as we talked about earlier, is an appropriate use of our military. And that's how we restore trust. I think people would be happy to serve this country if they knew it was actually to serve Americans rather than to fight somebody else's war halfway around the world so some Ukrainian kleptocrat can buy a bigger house.
It's not crying.
That's not going to happen on my watch, and I think that's how we restore trust. Thank you. Is Apurva here? My wife?
Where's that hottie at?
If Apurva's here, bring her up at some point. She's going to come. She's putting the kids to bed, but she wanted to make it for the end of this. So,
shout out to Apurva, the generator.
What's your name?
Yeah.
Alex. All right. Nice to see everybody here. Big fan of the show. Big fan of you, Vivek.
Thanks.
So, in primary schools in Russia, they currently teach their students jab and a cross before they ever teach a hook for 2 years. In China, they have masculinity training for their young men. If you look at the obesity rates in America, we've done a severe disservice to our youth in physical education.
Nikki Haley.
Where traditionally you look at like the De La Salle program out in California back in the 1930s, we were going to go a certain direction and then we flipped to another where kids can just, opt out of PE. What can you do to help make America's youth strong as President of the United States?
Yeah. I think that let's put aside the presidential authority here. I think that a lot of this should be driven by the states. I'm a constitutionalist. I believe that which is not reserved to the federal government is reserved respectively to the states and to the people. And I believe that because they're not my words. They're the words in our Constitution, in our 10th Amendment. But let's just talk about the broad policy. I've actually just as a citizen advocated often for the SAT, standardized testing. I think you have verbal and math. They added a writing section. I think it's not bad to bring back a physical fitness section as well. Just measure it. Different institutions can put different weight on what they want to weight it in. Not all students, not all schools should weigh the math scores the same way as they weigh the reading score, as the same way they weigh the writing scores, the same way they weigh the physical fitness score. But I think we should make it something worth aspiring to in this country. So that avoids any kind of mandating or anything like that as a basic first step, just signifying we're measuring something because it's worth measuring. Carbon emissions, not worth measuring. Physical fitness in young people, worth measuring, right? And so the things that you actually measure are the things that actually presumably matter. We used to have the presidential fitness test. It was actually under, I think it was President Obama, and it might have been a little bit of a pet project of Michelle Obama for whatever reason, to eliminate the presidential fitness test. That's not what it sounds like in the context of me saying it. I'm the U.S. president, though we could determine I think it doesn't hurt for a president to disclose how many push-ups and pull-ups they could do, too. It doesn't hurt. But that's not what I'm talking about. It refers to the presidential fitness test in junior high school. That refers to a number of attributes of how you're able to perform on basic parameters of physical fitness that allows us to hold our system accountable and teachers accountable and schools accountable for how well we're doing on that metric, just as well as how well or these days how poorly we're doing.
Wait, you say he's crying? Let's hear it.
Nikki Haley is running. We don't need another mealy-mouthed politician who just tells you what she thinks you want to hear just to try to get your vote, then to get in office and to do her donors' bidding. She was in another state, and she said the people of Iowa's votes need to be corrected.
He just sounds like he has a cold or something. I don't know.
On the metrics of math or reading proficiency. So I think that measuring it alone and making that a norm in this country would be a free, non-cost enhancing, non-liberty infringing way of actually doing what I think is good and important for our country. And oddly enough, I don't think it's that odd actually, that's going to have a palpable impact for the better on the mental health epidemic in this country. Actually, a lot of young kids are going to be mentally and psychologically a lot better off if we actually start just measuring and aspiring towards improved levels of physical fitness as well. I think most of us know that.
We need to bring back dodgeball.
It's definitely true
real.
From a data perspective as well.
Dude.
So that'd be my answer to your question.
Dude, when I used to be a teacher, I would play dodgeball, and there would be almost... Sometimes I would let it fly too hard, and they would just hit some kids.
And I do think, I've already been talking about it. People have asked me, why is this guy running for president? What does this have to do with it? Well, what it has to do with it is it still relates to that root cause and that loss of purpose in our country. And I do think that measuring physical fitness is strictly a good step for our youth and including integrated into our schools and standardized testing. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
What's your name?
Ryan.
Hey, Ryan.
Shout out to Ryan.
So I followed your campaign since basically the beginning, and I love your message.
Thanks, man.
I think you could fix this country. We've seen what they've done going after Donald Trump. Indictments, even trying to remove him from the ballot in certain states. My question is, how do I vote for Vivek Ramaswamy without sending the message that I am okay with what they are doing to Donald Trump?
Are they in a basement or something?
I think your question weighs on the minds of a lot of people I met today. What I saw in many of the rooms I was in was a sense of struggle with that question of loyalty. And I think our loyalty, my loyalty, and I know Donald Trump's loyalty and the loyalty of the people participating in this caucus process is to this country. So the question is what's right for the country. Let's just agree with that. Whoever you're going to vote for, that's what matters here. Not loyalty to me, not loyalty to Trump. It's loyalty to the United States of America. I think if you want to, I'm going to be blunt about this. I think if you want to save Trump and save this country, a vote for me is actually the way to go. What they're doing to Donald Trump is wrong. I have stood up against it at every step of this process, to the point of derision, to the point of people have had all kinds of conspiracy theories about me, but one of them, and more popular ones, is there's some kind of Trump plant, that Trump and I had some kind of deal early on in this campaign to somehow eliminate Ron DeSantis, as though this was a worthy goal for a guy who's got other things to do in life than to focus on eliminating Ron DeSantis from contention. No, that was ridiculous. But I'm saying that I've been so strongly supportive of Donald Trump in the face of these prosecutions that even many people circulated nonsense like this. I've stood up against, I went to the Miami courthouse, I've stood up against these persecutions. For God's sake, I have actually written a FOIA demand and submitted it, Freedom of Information Act request, to know what Biden told Jack Smith, what Merrick Garland told Jack Smith, followed through on that, taken legal steps, and I hope we get accountability. I think that I wasn't planning on announcing this tonight, but might as well just say it. I think
Say
tomorrow
it.
morning, if not by noon, by tomorrow morning in the next 48 hours, I am submitting an amicus brief to the Supreme Court, arguing for why they need to overturn Colorado's disastrous decision to try to keep Donald Trump off the ballot, because it's the right thing to do for this country. And as somebody who's been trained in the law, I feel like a sense of obligation to do that. If somebody who understands the Constitution, it's my belief that every other Republican, myself included, needs to withdraw from any ballot that forcibly withdraws Donald Trump from the primary ballot, because that's how you actually stop the brazen election interference in our own primary. If every other Republican nullifies Maine, then it has no impact. So that's the length to which I've gone. And so people know this about me when I'm saying this. At this point, it is my firm conviction that this system, which has ratcheted up the threat level one by one to eliminating Donald Trump from the ballot, will stop
Yeah, Maine
at
too. Good
nothing.
call.
I'm increasingly certain will stop at nothing to keep this man away from the White House. So I think the best way to literally save Trump is to at least have arguably somebody the system might actually, even some elements of it, prefer less than Donald Trump for what I'm bringing to Washington, D.C. And I think that's also what this country requires. I think they duped him at many steps. They told him you can't fire those civil service bureaucrats because of so-called civil service protections. Read the law. Those civil service protections do not apply to mass firings. Mass firings are what I'm bringing to the D.C. bureaucracy. So I will honor the man, and I have, and I think it's the right thing to do, and I will do it as the next president, because he kept us out of foreign wars that didn't advance our interests, and he grew this economy. Those are no two small accomplishments. But our America First agenda does not belong to Donald Trump, just as it doesn't belong to me or anybody else up here. It belongs to you, to us, to we the people of this country. And we owe it to this country to make sure that movement does not end with Donald Trump, which is what the system has set up to do. I believe we're being led into a trap right now, and it pains me to watch it. So I'm asking you to do the right thing for this country. If you want to support Donald Trump even, or what he represents is actually more precise. Mm-hmm. The right way to do that, to see this through for the country, is a vote for me in this Iowa caucus on Monday. And I think there's an emotional component to this. I actually think we need to vote with our brains. There's times when you vote with your heart. There's times when you vote with your brain. Your heart can get you to the doorstep of why America First matters, but now voting with your brain is asking, are you going to look back? Here's the thought experiment that I'd like for every voter in this state to go through. And I think a lot of them are considering myself for Trump heading into Monday. Do you think you're going to look back a year from now and say, whatever, God forbid, happens this year, say we were shocked by what happened? I mean, last time it was a man-made pandemic and a tech-rigged process leading up to an election.
This time World War III?
We all know was absolutely an unfair election. That was last time. What do you think they're going to do this time? Are you going to be shocked next January and say, oh, I was shocked that happened? Or are you going to say, we should have seen that coming? And I think it's exactly going to play out. If it's not me in the nomination slot, it's going to play out exactly the way I laid out. It's going to be Trump in a two-horse race versus a puppet who they can control. One way or another, they're going to eliminate him. We're going to look back and say that should have been obvious, when in fact right now people are behaving as though it's not. And we're going to regret the result. And I don't think there's a good chance, I don't think we have a country left, not the same country that we know and love. And so we owe it to this country and to our founding fathers to make sure the 250-year experiment does not end this year, and that we have yet another 250 years and then some left to go. That's why I'm asking you to vote for me. If you want to save Trump and save this country, vote for me. And I hope that gets you to the place where you make the right decision for this country. Thank you, man.
Yeah, make the right decision.
Two more?
Yeah. Two more questions.
Two more questions?
What's your name?
Tim.
Good name.
It's a great name.
It's okay.
Hi, my name's Tim, and
It's okay.
I have a question about civic duty voting. I'm trying to get my friend to get on the Vivek train, but he likes a lot of most of your things except for civic duty voting, and so I have his concerns. He just doesn't think it has a point to it Young adults voting, there's no other way to get young Americans to vote besides making it harder. The test will only hurt the Americans who don't have access to good education or resources, so poorer communities is what he said. Also, you're an adult at 18, you can be tried by court, you can go into the workforce and be a part of the community. You should be allowed to vote without taking a test like an American citizen, is what his concerns are.
Cool. So what I would tell your friend is, first of all, I would say this in a friendly way, relax, in the sense that this anything touching this would require a constitutional amendment. But why don't we talk about forgetting the plumbing of how we accomplish it? Let's at least see if we agree on the spirit of it, which is that in order to be a full citizen of a country, and citizenship is not about what you get, it's actually about what you give. Women didn't have citizenship and didn't have voting rights in this country. People think it means, what do you get? You get the right to vote? No, women were citizens all along, didn't have the right to vote. So if you actually trace our history, what's the origin of citizenship? Citizenship is about allegiance. It's about duty. It's actually why I don't believe that dual citizenship is a coherent concept in the United States. It's all about, or in any country, it's about allegiance. It's about, and with allegiance comes a duty. So with that said, the basic point I was making is, what's your basic duty at least we should expect of someone to a country? Some people will make cases for mandatory military service. I don't. But I think the basic table stakes of your duty to this country should be to know the bare minimums about this country and the Constitution and our history. It's mainly just the Constitution and the way the government works. And we know that that's an intuition we already track, because if you're an immigrant to this country, we say, you can't vote. You can have all kinds of other benefits. We give all kinds of benefits to illegal immigrants to this country. There's all kinds of things we do. But at least when things have worked the way they're supposed to, you can't vote in this country until you become a naturalized citizen, which requires you to pass a basic civics test. And so if we require that of a legal immigrant to this country before they cast a ballot at the ballot box, I think it's reasonable for every high school senior who graduates.
Are you guys in favor of that? Do you guys think that people should have a test before they take a test? I mean, I feel like that's a very interesting concept, because I think a lot of people would fail it. Or just like a basic knowledge of news and politics in the world today. Because I have a lot of friends that refuse to watch the news because it's too anxiety inducing, and so it's better to stick your head in the sand. Did he just say that he wouldn't run for president, but we need... did he just say that he wouldn't run for president, but we need Florida to stay red?
Iowa. And so this actually generated a lot of controversy. My campaign staff hated me for rolling out this idea because it didn't poll well. I said this idea. They said, well, at least can we poll it? I said, yeah, I'd love to see the data. It did not poll well. I came back and I still rolled it out in the speech where I was planning to, because I think it's the right thing for the country. So I'm aware that it has not been a friend to my vote gathering process in this campaign. But I think people have come around to it, actually, over the course of the year. Some of my other positions have had the benefit of this too, my position on Ukraine or otherwise. But in this one, it so happens, I think people have come around to it. A 10-year-old girl in Iowa, her name is Lena, she came to one of my events having heard about this controversy.
10 years old?
She heard me take a beating from it, from mostly on the left. They claimed it was Jim Crow or something like this. Everything's Jim Crow. If you're a 10-year-old and somebody says Jim Crow, I think you might think it like refers to air. It permeates and it's everywhere. But anyway, she heard a lot of this criticism, and she printed out the 100-question civics test. Most adults in the United States would fail it if they took it right now. 60% is a pass.
Are you smarter than a fifth grader?
She's 10 years old. She comes out with a printout with a handwritten note showing me and telling me that she got 100%, 100 out of 100 at the age of 10. So I don't think this is something that results in some socioeconomic struggle. If this 10-year-old girl in Iowa can know the first thing, I mean, questions like, how many branches of government are there? What branch of government does the U.S. president lead? I don't think it's too much to ask an 18-year-old to know what branch of government the U.S. president leads before they show up at the ballot box to cast a vote for the U.S. president. I think that's a reasonable thing to ask of a country. And I think that that's what it means to be a citizen of this one. So tell your friend to look at the spirit of that and don't worry about the plumbing so much. Thank you.
The plumbing. I don't like that metaphor.
Hi, I'm Brittany. Big fan of Timcast. Big fan of Candace. Hello.
Hi.
Okay, so Vivek, thank you so much for being here. I know the weather is not ideal right now, but thank you for being here. So your slogan has been truth, and it's all over this room. Many Americans over the years have felt lied to by our government, and that they have pulled the wool over our eyes with so many occurrences in history, especially in the last 4 years. Recently, you have been speaking what recently happened with January 6th, and you're constantly be getting attacked. So thank you for speaking the truth on that.
Thank you.
There have been so many whistleblowers, such as Snowden, to expose the truth to the American people about what is going on behind closed doors. My question to you is, do you have it on your radar to grant pardons to those who told the truth to the American people, and also to release documents that would uncover a lot of unknowns to the American people, or to provide protections to future whistleblowers?
Yes, yes, and yes is the answers to your questions. I mean, I think that...
What about yes?
So, it's not pardon, be a clemency, but I think that if you swear an oath to the Constitution, your job is to keep it. And so you cannot systematically participate in the violation of those constitutional freedoms and constitutional rights without exposing that to the public. And I think we, the people, deserve a government that just tells the people the truth again. Not just when it's easy, but when it's hard. Sometimes it's ugly. That's when we need it the most. And I think we've been systematically lied to. You could just go to the last 8 years. Trump-Russia collusion hoax. Made up. COVID origin. Couldn't say that it came from a lab in China when it was obvious that it likely came from a lab in China.
Thanks, Donald. I appreciate that.
How our money is being spent in Ukraine right now. The truth about what happened on January 6th. The truth about the Nashville transgender shooter manifesto. So we actually went down to Nashville, Candace and I did an event there together.
What about the Iowa shooter? What about the Iowa shooter? Say that.
Or the FBI, either one, to just release that manifesto. And how we were actually lied to, even in that community. They said there's a lot in there that it's not what you think it is, but it could be dangerous to release. Then it gets released, and we see it was just actually a race-baiting, psychologically challenged person. A government that has systematically lied to its people. The reason people don't trust the government is that the government doesn't trust the people. Trust is a two-way relationship, actually. And so I think the two ways we rebuild trust in this country. We had the event last night. Did you? Yeah, you were all the way. You both were there for the press gaggle afterwards. That was a fun press gaggle we had last night. People should watch that one. It was the longest one I've done in a long time. We do the events and the press will come up afterwards. It's about 35 minutes. I think we want to rebuild trust in this country. If two things happen, I think we have taken a quantum leap forward. We're back on track as a country. They're easy to do. The President of the United States tells the American people what we know about the subjects where the government has lied to the people. UAPs, tell us the truth. What happened on January 6th? Just tell us the truth. What was Saudi Arabia's role in 9/11? We know they lied to us. Just tell us the truth. Just go straight down the list. What was or wasn't known about the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq? Just tell us the truth. How many times as a government official, we saw the Twitter files, anytime a government official has pressured a private actor or a company or a bank or a tech company to do something the government couldn't do directly, just publish it as a first step. Tell us the truth. Was our taxpayer money used to fund the gain-of-function research that resulted in the origin of the COVID-19 pandemic? That's the first thing that it's up to a U.S. president to do from the standpoint of the government. And then if just one person in the media, just one, I don't need NBC and ABC and CBS and CNN and everybody else doing it at the same time, just one of them, look their audience in the eye and tell them when it came to the Hunter Biden laptop story that was suppressed on the eve of the last election, when it came to the Trump-Russia collusion hoax, when it came to the origin of COVID-19.
This guy's answers are so long.
The truth
I love it.
The totality, at least, even of what happened on January 6th, or the Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping plot, or whatever. We didn't tell you the whole truth. We're sorry about it. Here's why we didn't.
Yeah, right.
These are institutional failures.
Honesty would
and
never happen
why
with
we're
these
going to
people.
make sure that never happens again. And I know you're still not going to trust us tomorrow, but we hope to re-earn your trust by repeatedly telling you the truth transparently. And we regret what happened, and we fired the people who were accountable for hiding it from you.
I mean, that would change everything.
If you have a president who does that from the White House, and just one, not all of them, just one actor in the mainstream media who does that, looking their audience in the eye on a TV screen and telling them the same thing, we are well on our way to reuniting and reviving this country. If I'm your president, that's going to happen from the presidency.
It's good.
And I think there's probably at least one good, enterprising, smart person still left there in the mainstream media that could step up and do the same thing. And if those two things happen, I am confident that we don't have to be mired in this divisive decline that we're in, but that we still can be in our ascent. I believe that. And I'm going to do my part. And I hope those in the media who have failed have step up and do their part. And, all I'm going to ask is of the citizens of this country to do your part here in Iowa starting on Monday. And that's what gets us there. So thank you. I appreciate you asking the question.
Sometimes I think that it's
here we
more
go.
valuable to lie to the people. And it's actually better in that we're talking about like secret weapons programs. You mentioned UAPs. If we're working on like the atom bomb, they didn't want to come out and be like, by the way, Germany and everyone listening, we're building an atom bomb.
Why do you feel like you need to talk right
like,
now, Ian?
Are you building an atom bomb? No, we are not building an atom. So there's times that you want to blatantly lie and not even say that the thing is not existent.
Exactly. Like when my wife says, "Do I look fat in this?" I say yes.
I disagree about the distinction between secrecy versus lying. There's certain state secrets, they need to be state secrets. Yes. Systematically lying when asked about it, I think, is a different matter. And so I think that's a hard line to draw. But you and I would still agree that at a certain point, you have a government that still tells the truth to the people again. And I think we deserve to know the truth of all the way what happened what's the truth of what happened with JFK? I think we should know. I think the public should know. We've been non-transparent about it every step of the way. People call me conspiracy theorist for asking the question. That's not the point. The point is the government just deserves to, at a certain point in time, tell the people the truth again. And I disagree with you even in the near term. In the short run, it could be a more convenient thing to do to lie to the people. But in the long run, I think the answer is always to actually stand for the truth. And if you get into the specifics, even of geopolitics, this relates to the historical neocon neoliberal view of strategic ambiguity, right? So non-transparency at home goes hand in glove with the foreign policy worldview of strategic ambiguity. It's a whole worldview that says you're going to actually be in a stronger position if you don't tell people what you're going to do. I actually view it the other way. I think that if we have clear red lines and actually say that, we are nuclear equipped and here's where we are.
Yeah.
That's actually going to, if we tell a country that if you cross this red line, we're actually going to have major consequences to pay for it. That's more likely to actually avoid war
Is this other
than
debate
it is
going
to
on?
actually engage in strategic ambiguity. And so it's just a totally different worldview from the traditional neoconservative neoliberal vision that I'm bringing, which is transparency at home, which actually translates to you don't need the national security charade.
Yeah, I am curious where Tim actually met Ian. Was it a Deadhead parking lot? Was Ian Tim Pool's drug dealer at one point, and now he's invited him to be part of the show? How did he meet Ian? I don't know it. I don't understand him on the show. It's like Pineapple Express. It's his old drug dealer. They became best friends. They took over. They defeated a very evil corporation that was going to sell weed, the Pineapple Express weed.
Future of
What
our
is
republic,
happening?
then I'm not your guy. I'm not your candidate. But if you believe with me that in the long run, this is the way to respect the founding ideals of this country and to lead a country that is stronger over the long run for relying on truth, both in our foreign policy and our domestic policy, then I don't think there's anybody in this race who comes close to being able to deliver that in the way that I will. So that's what I offer.
I want to thank Vivek for having us out, and
Yeah.
for
Thank you
everyone
guys
else
for
here who's,
having me.
who's
I appreciate
joined
you
and
guys.
has hung out with us. We've got a special members-only segment, VIP. We're going to be hanging out at this private party.
You know what? We're gonna be hanging out at this private party right here in my freaking room. Oh, it's still happening. Let's check in on this other debate.
We take care of my parents. They're 87 and 90. My dad is in
gotta
the
be
hospital
closing,
right
right?
now. When my mom was in the hospital, a nurse came up to her to give her a couple of Tylenol. And she said, I don't need them. And she said, honey, you might as well take them because you're going to pay for them anyway. When we got the bill from the hospital, no one talked to us about that. Right now, you have insurance companies and hospitals deciding what it is for us. We're going to take the patient out of the back seat and put them in the driver's seat. We're going to make sure that just like when you get your car fixed and you go and they say, we can give you a temporary fix and it'll cost this much money, or we can give you a permanent fix and it's going to cost that much money. We're going to go and make it transparent so that we can see everything so that they have to show us their warts. The second thing is we're going to pass tort reform around this country. I did that in South Carolina. Doctors don't give you those 10 tests because they want to. It's for the 90% chance they'll get sued. And then we're going to go and eliminate certificate of need in this country. I did that in South Carolina as well. That basically says if you have a hospital here, you can't have another hospital for X number of miles. They do the same thing for surgical centers, for nursing homes. We're going to put competition back in healthcare so that healthcare is fighting for the patient. That way services go up and costs go down.
Governor Haley, just a 15-second point of clarification. Would you allow the states that accepted Medicaid expansion to keep that?
So the problem with Medicaid is it needs to be sent down as block grants. Governors can best decide how to do that, whether they need to use it towards mental health, whether they need to use it towards support services. Right now, I would send all of that down to the states. The problem is they're only sending a small portion of it. They need to send more of that so that states can better take care of it.
Governor DeSantis, your response on whether you would allow Iowa and the other 39 states who accepted Medicaid expansion to keep it?
Well, I've spoken with a lot of folks here in Iowa, and we need health care that's accessible, that's affordable, and that's accountable, and particularly an emphasis on mental health. In every corner of this state, everywhere I've traveled in the campaign, people are really concerned about mental health with the kids in schools, people that are coming out of service to our country, with veterans. We're going to put a big emphasis on mental health. I've actually delivered on some of these things in Florida. We got accountability for the pharmacy benefit middlemen that are causing your drug prices to go up. So we have transparency and consumers pay less. And I just beat the federal government to allow the state of Florida to buy prescription drugs from Canada, which is 25 cents on the dollar what our prescription drugs cost. I want seniors to be able to do. And then finally, we need to upend this COVID and medical authoritarian regime that we saw going around this country during COVID. It's wrong to force vaxes like the COVID shot and say people are going to lose their jobs. That is not going to ever happen on my watch, trust me.
Governor DeSantis, the same 15-second
I think what you do is you block grant the program and then let states run the way they see fit to do. But I can tell you this, expanding Medicaid leads to less private coverage.
Wow.
It doesn't necessarily increase access to quality care. I want to actually people get good health care. It's not just about a sheet of paper. If you don't get any good doctors,
Thank
that
you,
gives
Governor.
you entitled for that.
Good for him.
Governor DeSantis mentioned mental health. Let's talk about that. There is a mental health crisis in this country. An estimated 58 million Americans suffer from some type of mental illness. Governor Haley, you say the mental health crisis is a, quote, cancer that no one has dealt with. What do you think is causing the crisis, and what would you do to fix it?
Well, I think we saw it exacerbated by COVID. I mean, with the school lockdowns and everything else, we see young people now with more anxiety, stress, and depression than ever before. 1 in 3 people right now suffer from mental health issues. But if treated, they can live a perfectly normal life. The problem is we don't have enough mental health therapists. We don't have enough mental health treatment centers. We don't have enough addiction centers. And if you happen to be lucky enough to get one of those 3, insurance doesn't cover it. We have got to start dealing with this because it's become a huge issue. And that's why we need to have more telehealth so that people can get the mental health care they need.
You know why insurance doesn't cover it? It's because dealing with insurance is such a pain in the ass that most providers don't want to do it, and they only selectively use certain insurances because every insurance is different. And so if you have a certain set of rules for 100 different insurances, it's better just to pick a couple and then just provide care based on those few insurances because you know them and you can stay within their bounds. When you accept a bunch of different insurance companies, they all want different things, and so as a provider you have to know all the different stupid quirks things, or else they don't give you a rebate or give you money back. That is why. It's not because there's not enough mental health providers and stuff like that. Insurance companies are such a pain in the ass to deal with. It's a little inside.
Right when they need it. We need to have mental health counselors in schools so they can identify when a child has a problem that they can get the help that they need. But right now, we've got to get access to care. And that's, again, why I want to move those federal programs down to the state level, because states know they need more mental health support. They're not getting the dollars to do it. We don't need D.C. bureaucrats handling that. We need this on the ground so that we can get the mental health centers, get the therapists, and get the help that people need so that they can be healthy again.
Governor Governor DeSantis, you said right here in Iowa this summer that closing mental health institutions, a policy supported by Ronald Reagan, was a mistake. As president, would you restore federal funding to those mental health institutions?
Yes, we need more people in institutionalized settings, unfortunately. But, you know, Governor Haley mentioned, I think correctly, the devastating mental health consequences for these school closures, a lot of things that happened during COVID. I never recalled seeing her out there fighting the fight. I was on the front lines on that. Governor Kim Reynolds was on the front lines on that. We fought back against the biomedical state. We were attacked by the media. We were attacked by the pharmaceutical companies. We were attacked by the left, attacked by Fauci. We stood and we helped people, and Iowa and Florida had the best schools opening in the entire pandemic because we led. That's what you want to do. Now, in terms of mental health, I've run into veterans here in Iowa, and I think we have a significant problem with veterans, particularly the post 9/11 veterans. And we know the stats on suicide. It's really, really sad. And as a fellow veteran, as president, I have to put that issue on the front burner. We can't keep turning a blind eye to what's happening to our vets. It's not going to be done just through the VA.
Yes.
And it can't be done just by pumping people with
And
pharmaceuticals. The veteran has post-traumatic stress.
Dude, and TRICARE. Dear God. TRICARE is the worst insurance to have to deal with. It's
stress. You need more than just that. So we're going to use the VA to link veterans with resources that are throughout our country. For example, in Florida, we have an organization that trains service dogs to be able to be paired with veterans with post-traumatic stress. They understand the symptoms, they mitigate it, and you know what? The suicide rate is close to zero as a result of that. We got to think bigger than these bureaucracies, and we've got to be there for our vets and their mental health.
Thank you, Governor. Turning to the topic of climate, 2023 was the hottest year ever recorded on Earth, and Americans
Such
are
a hot year.
feeling the impact. Just yesterday, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration reported that the U.S. experienced 28 weather and climate-related disasters that cost at least $1 billion last year, another record. Governor DeSantis here in Florida, Governor DeSantis here in Iowa, massive flooding has left farmers underwater. In Florida, rising seas threaten coastal cities. You have taken action in your home state to mitigate the problems of rising seas. But as president, would you do anything to deal with the underlying cause, which scientists agree requires cutting carbon emissions?
So on day one as president, we take Biden's Green New Deal, we tear it up and we throw it in the trash can. It is bad for this country. We have to have reliable energy. And here's the thing, you know,
I love when Ron DeSantis has a little sass about him. He's just like, we're going to tear it up and we're going to throw it in the trash can. Swish, Kobe.
They talk about, Joe Biden has said that global warming is worse than a nuclear war. And I'm just thinking to myself, well, gee, John Kerry hasn't given up his private jet. Obama hasn't given up his Martha's Vineyard seaside mansion. I haven't seen Biden do anything to hold China accountable except making sure that Hunter gets his money. So these guys talk out of one side of their mouth and then they behave in another way. And I think that's wrong. But I also think that those policies would devastate communities, particularly here in Iowa. I mean, for example, he wants to mandate electric vehicles. That's going to be more costly. I think the car companies would go bankrupt, but it's going to hurt liquid fuels, which is very, very important. You're going to end up having rolling blackouts if they kneecap reliable energy production in this country. Florida's had a massive decline in emissions. Wasn't because of a single mandate. It was because of innovation, because a lot of natural gas has replaced coal. We do have market-based solar, and it's a complement, but we cannot walk away from reliable
here's global
energy.
warming right here.
And I think about, here's what the left wants to do.
Dude?
They want to take away your freedom, and they want you to pay more for everything. We need you to pay less for energy, and we need to make sure people can innovate. We cannot have these mandates, and they'll be gone the day I'm president.
So, Governor, just a point of clarification, 15 seconds. Recent research at the University of Iowa ties these floods in Iowa to the rise in greenhouse gases.
And here's the thing, Jay,
let me
I
just ask the question. As president, would you do anything to deal with this underlying cause?
Innovate. And here's the thing. China is building 2 coal plants a week. You can do everything Biden wants to do, and you're going to have way more of what China's increasing it. So why would we be cutting off our nose to spite our face? China is the problem here, and so hold them accountable.
Thank you,
don't
Governor.
hold the American people
Thank you,
to less
Governor. Governor
opportunity.
Haley, as president, would you do anything to deal with the underlying cause of the floods and other climate disasters, which scientists agree requires?
I would send my thoughts and prayers. That's one for the lefties. You're welcome.
Cutting carbon emissions.
I mean, first of all, regardless of what party, everybody wants to have clean air, clean water. They want a world that they can pass on to their kids that's going to be healthy and all of that. But it's how do we do that?
I don't know if she knows
I think
what
the
party
first
she's
thing we
in.
have to understand is you don't deal in extremes. When I was at
Okay, this guy's such an idiot. Republicans don't want clean water? What the frick is going on? I swear, people on the left have such a dumb idea of what people on the right think. It's like, we're just like, when we see trash in a forest when we're going for a hike, we like clap. We're like, yes, I love trash. I love pollution. It gets me hard. Like, shut up, dude.
the United Nations, the reason I took us out of the Paris Climate Agreement was because President Obama had put all these mandates down on our businesses, but they didn't do anything to hold China and India to account. Those are the two countries we have to really go to if we care about the environment, that we go and make them be held accountable. The second thing is we'll roll back all of Biden's green subsidies because they're misplaced. Rather than putting anything towards
that'll help the environment.
on what we can do on nuclear fusion and other things that reduce emissions.
Ask if she'll roll back any of the fossil fuel
To
subsidies.
go and have everybody have to drive an electric car by 2035, that's not even smart. One, because which, by
I
the
want
way,
clean waters.
Ron took Biden's stimulus money and did
I prefer my water to be as dirty as possible. PG-13 water, to be exact.
charging stations all throughout Florida. I wouldn't have taken the
That is a
stimulus
dumb
money.
joke.
But what that does is basically we don't have the infrastructure. And I'm not just talking about charging stations. Electric vehicles are heavy. Our roads and bridges
Luckily,
wouldn't be
she can have the infrastructure because the Inflation Reduction Act gave enough money for 500,000 charging stations across the
50%
U.S.
of the batteries in electric.
Exactly. We need the government to subsidize electric charging stations, not companies to be like, there's a need for electric charging vehicle stations and there's a huge demand for it. Why don't we make a bunch of money and do that? No, we need the government to figure that out because the private sector is dumb. I kind of like listening to this guy. It's fun to hear how dumb some of these takes are.
Cars
But he's wearing a tie, so he's smarter than me.
are made in China. So Biden gave this massive windfall to our #1 national security threat. If we're going to do it, innovate it, transition, and do it the right way, not in extremes.
Thank you. I want to turn to the issue of crime. The majority of Americans
Crime.
describe crime in the U.S. as either extremely or very serious. Recent data show crime rates falling, but some violent
major
crime
cities.
rates do remain high. Governor Haley, former President Trump, suggested that he might try to stop violent crime by deploying U.S. troops to Democratic-run states and cities, something he could potentially do under the Insurrection Act. Is that something that you would do as president?
What I would do is, first of all, defund sanctuary cities. It's hugely important that we do that. That's where we're seeing a lot of crime. But the second thing is, our law enforcement is demoralized right now. Because if they go and they arrest someone for having a stolen gun, it's demoralizing when they...
Wait, did I miss this little quote?
Our country, tearing our country.
2 minutes? Oh, sorry.
go through all that effort, put their lives at risk, and then you turn around and let that criminal go the very next day. Prosecutors need to prosecute according to the law, and we've got to start holding them accountable. When we bring law...
I personally hope DeSantis and Haley get 0 votes in the primary. Trump should get 95, Vivek 5. No chance. But yeah, same.
and order back to our cities, then that's when they'll be safe. You don't do it by default.
I mean, I don't know. I think one of these two, either Nikki or Ron DeSantis, is going to... There's going to be a surprising moment where a bunch of people... Because I don't live in Iowa. I don't know what they're thinking. I don't know what these people... It's a negative 22 degrees out there. I don't know what's on their minds. But like, I think one of these two might get a higher number than people are projecting. Bunch of cornbread white people? Come on.
defunding the police, and you don't do it by just praising the police. You do it by having their backs, making sure we passed the first body camera bill in the country in South Carolina to make sure that law enforcement felt like they could do their job without feeling threatened about them doing their job. But we have to have prosecutors prosecuting. We have to defund sanctuary cities. We have to get these stolen guns and drugs off the street. And the only way we can do that is when we empower law enforcement.
Governor
Now,
DeSantis.
I just think, that quote from the former President Trump is a little bit rich, because he was president during the worst rioting in the modern history of this country, the BLM riots in the summer of 2020. When I saw that happening in Minneapolis, in Florida, I called out the National Guard. We had state law enforcement deployed. We said, you're not burning down our cities in this state. And you know what? It didn't happen. He sat in the White House and tweeted law and order, but he did nothing to ensure law and order. As your president, I will never let our cities burn. You have every right to stop this runaway rioting. As president, in fact, you have a duty. Now, Nikki Haley and I have a disagreement on the BLM stuff too, because she tweeted during this period of time that the death of George Floyd should be, quote, personal and painful for each and every American. But people in Iowa had nothing to do with that, or Florida or South Carolina. She was virtue signaling to the left. She was accepting the narrative, and she was trying to impress people who were never going to like us. I never bought into going after the police. We back the blue to the hilt in the state of Florida, and we're have lower crime as a result of that.
Thank you. Governor Haley?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the governor's decided not to. There was some kind of law between sending troops in and the governor saying no and all that.
It's interesting that he did that. He put a tweet that was very similar, but let me tell you why I did that. First of all, we had one of the worst two racial shootings. We had the shooting of Walter Scott, who was shot 7 times in the back by a dirty cop. We had a horrific shooting at a church where a white supremacist came in and killed 9 amazing souls. BLM, all of that, we never had to deal with riots. We never had to call in the National Guard, Ron, because when we had both of those shootings, we were able to pull people together. We didn't have riots, we had vigils. We didn't have protests, we had prayer. We brought people together. When I said that...
Oh, God, if she's going to say that she would be able to not have those violent protests in the summer of love because of her leadership style, I am going to shave my hair.
About George Floyd, when we turned around and had the worst shooting in a religious place that we had seen in this country. Not only did I pass the first body camera bill in the country and keep our state together, not only did I move to bring the Confederate flag down, we came together as a state in prayer, and we had no division, no riots, no anything. We didn't need the National Guard because a leader knows how to bring out the best in their people.
Thank you, Governor. You have been sparring on the campaign trail for months. We've seen some vicious attack ads going back and forth, and tonight we have had a very lively debate. On a different note, Governor DeSantis, let me ask you, what do you admire about Governor Haley?
Well, look, I think that, at the United Nations, I did think that she spoke out strongly on some key issues, and I appreciated that. I also appreciate the state of South Carolina. My wife is a College of Charleston graduate. Her parents lived there for many, many years.
Know that.
And so it is a wonderful state. There's a lot of great people there. And I think to be able to have been governor there is a great achievement. And I really appreciate everyone I've gotten to meet in South Carolina.
Governor Haley, what do you admire?
I'm sorry, that
Governor
pulled up on my
DeSantis?
Twitter
I think
timeline.
he's been a good governor.
Okay. So we're going to take another quick break, and we'll be right back with more from the...
All right.
Allows.
Oh, man. How long is this freaking debate? God. Put that back on. Okay, hold on. The tweet is... It says Justin Trudeau. I don't know what this is. Why is this on my freaking feed? What is this? Here's the Miami alien. We've been looking for the Miami alien. It's right here. Live footage of the Miami alien. It's here. Fantastic. God. A little bit of dude, have you we're getting back. I don't know what that was, but it definitely made me uncomfortable. All right.
And the CNN
Please say it's closing statements, right?
Debate. We now have time for closing statements, and we begin with
Jeez.
Governor Haley.
First of all, I want to thank the good people of Iowa.
Talk-
I have campaigned for 11
talk about
months,
the
whether
tunnels.
it's driving a combine or holding a pig
What's up, Miss
at
Barry?
a produce area, or whether it's the fact that we've met owners of bakeries and small businesses. You know, every one of them knows that we can't go through 4 more years of chaos. And if it's Donald Trump, there will be 4 more years of chaos. And we can't be a country in disarray and a world on fire and go through 4 more years of chaos.
Real.
And we can't go through another nail biter of an election. And if you look at the polls right now, going against Joe Biden, in every one of those head-to-head polls, Ron doesn't beat Joe Biden. Trump is head-to-head. On a good day, he might be up by 2 points. I defeat Biden by 17 points. That's bigger than the presidency. That's House, that's Senate, that's governorships, that's down to school board. That's a mandate to get our spending under control and get inflation down. That's a mandate to get our kids reading again and go back to the basics in education. That's a mandate to secure our borders with no more excuses. That's a mandate to bring law and order back to our country. And that's a mandate for a strong America that we can be proud of. We can do this. I know we can do this. If you will join with me in this movement, if you join with me in this fight, I promise you our best days are to come. God bless you.
Governor DeSantis.
Well, it's been great to visit all 99 counties here in Iowa. I've been able to meet so many friends and really learn about some of the best of America. Iowa's votes do not need to be corrected by any other state. You all know what you're doing, and we have an opportunity in Monday to really change the course of history. Donald Trump's running for his issues. Nikki Haley's running for her donors' issues. I'm running for your issues, your family's issues, and solely to turn this country around. I'm the only one running that's delivered on 100% of my promises, and I'm the only one running that has beaten the left time and time again, from the teachers' unions to Fauci to the Democratic Party. We need to run under the banner of bold colors that are putting the American people first. We can't run under a banner of pale pastels of the warmed over corporatism, the likes of which is practiced by Nikki Haley. Freedom is on the ballot. Decline is a choice. We have it within our power to fix this country and to turn it around. I am asking for your support in the Iowa caucus on Monday, January 15th. I'll be a president that you can be proud of, and I promise you this, I will get the job done, and I will not let you down. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Our thanks to Governor DeSantis and Governor Haley. Governor DeSantis and Governor Haley, thank you so much, both of you, for being here tonight. Thanks to our audience, to our host, Drake University. For Dana Bash and the whole CNN team, I'm Jake Tapper. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to join us Monday, January 15th at 4 p.m. Eastern for CNN's coverage of the Iowa caucus.
Holy crap. I found my sister. I found this video of my sister. Here she is.
About to go on a date, and I have to get all my weirdness out before I see him, because I wanna impress him.
That is my sister, and clearly by the hair. She's crazy, and I love her. Oh, man. What is everyone's thought? Okay. Vivek looks strong on Timcast. Not as strong as this.
We're going to talk about outrageous things that have happened or things that have never happened. Let's talk about the fact that President Trump incited an erection. And maybe that too.
Definitely cited that. Oh. She's Turkish. Yeah, she's Turkish. She's a Turkish bae.
I'm about to go on a date.
She's got problems, but we call it family. She is a lovely woman. Is your sister single? Yeah, she's going on a date. We both go to the same barber. Her and I, we go to Supercuts together because we're all about the massage at Supercuts. Let's say Supercuts hair. We're all about Supercuts. We're huge Supercuts fans. Supercuts. Shout out to Super. See, look at that. That's the hairstyle I'm going for right here. Now that is gorgeous. I don't care what anyone says. Guys, thank you so much for this. They didn't watch very much. I had so much fun tonight. I appreciate you guys. We're on 2.5 hours. Dang. I hope you guys have enjoyed this 2.5 hour live stream. It's a debate on memorized one-liners. Oh, that was 100% what that was. That's why they were fighting over each other and screaming over each other. But we didn't watch the whole thing. We were watching the Trump town hall. It was way more fun. I appreciate every single one of you guys for joining me tonight. Love every single one of you guys. I will go live tomorrow night as well because I got more energy and I'm feeling good. I appreciate you guys for being here. If you guys don't mind dropping a like, as always, and checking out my show from today, both shows on Korean dog meat and all that stuff. Your current hair is actually better than mine, and I wish I wasn't losing hair. You know what, dude? Don't worry about it. Don't lose hair. Just, gain hair. Just go to hey, $5 super chat from Willie on Rumble. Thank you so much, Willie. I appreciate you, my guy. Hey, Queen, it was nice to see you guys live too. I miss you guys. I miss this community. I like this community. You guys are awesome. I think like your online community reflects you as a person, and I like you guys. So so it means a lot. We don't have like a bunch of like insane individuals who I feel like if I ran into public I wouldn't want to hang out with. So I would be down to hang out with any of you guys. Just look for this hair. Don't lose hair. Never lose hair. Make sure you get your Medoxil treatment. Like your hair, bro. Thanks, Alan. It's official. It's getting cheaper. I spent $35,000 on this hair. I maxed it out on 3 different credit cards. It was well worth it. I'm happy about my experience in Turkey. Wonderful people. I converted to Islam. It's just for a 10% discount. It worked. Everything worked out really well for me, and I'm really excited about it. I appreciate you guys. I hope you guys have a wonderful night. I'll see you guys tomorrow. We'll have a regular show tomorrow.